Chapter 1604. Before Xiao could perform, the crowd gave him a warm round of applause. After standing still, Xiao bowed to the crowd with his hands clasped in front of his chest. His dignified appearance made him look like a child of wealth, making him extremely likable. He first winked mischievously at his parents, then nodded at the drummer at the side. Soon the sound of drums could be heard. Xiao was dressed in a neat outfit and was very relaxed. He nodded his head, supported himself with his hands, and somersaulted a few times, causing everyone to laugh and clap. Did they think that he only knew how to do this? He retreated to a corner and ran quickly. With both hands on the ground, he somersaulted 5 or 6 times in the air, then somersaulted 5 or 6 times in the reverse direction. His movements were very standard and very fast. It was impossible to tell that he was a 2-year-old child. After Xiao stabilized himself, the crowd burst into applause. As expected of my elder brother's child, he has the demeanor he had back then. Xiao clapped happily. Gongsun Shui, who was sitting at the side, watched as Xiao bowed to the crowd gracefully, then jumped off the stage and happily pounced on his father, Xiao Su. Chu Qingyan and her husband were not stingy with their praises for him. She had never seen a child of a master perform on stage for others. Furthermore, there were so many servants present. However, not only did everyone support him, they also sincerely encouraged him. Xiao was very well educated, which surprised her. However, the crowd's reaction and this banquet surprised her even more. She had attended many banquets, but she had never been so lively and relaxed. These people really made people want to get close to them. Xiao did not see any movement from the person beside him, so he turned his head in confusion. However, he saw the nostalgia in the Ice Beauty's eyes. He could not help but narrow his eyes. Why would the Ice Beauty have such emotions? At this time, the Emperor Emeritus and Father Chu went on stage. The two of them were performing a monkey show. What was a monkey show? It was similar to Sun Wukong's stick trick. The two of them were especially good at imitating. Coupled with their tacit understanding over the years, their cooperation was flawless, making everyone laugh. They were simply clowns. In order to support his imperial grandfather, Xiao temporarily put his doubts to the back of his mind. He would ask her about it later. It was Ethereal's turn. He used a bamboo leaf that he had casually plucked to play a tune. Just like his name, Ethereal. Next, it was Yen Luo's turn. She brought a basket of herbs onto the stage. I'm not good at martial arts, so I won't embarrass myself. I'm also not good at playing musical instruments. However, I have a basket of herbs here. If you can determine their effects based on the information I've provided, you'll receive a healing medicine I've prepared for the winner. However, for the sake of fairness, the medical students present are not allowed to participate. This rule was clearly targeted at Ethereal to prevent others from saying that she was biased. Little did he know that Tao Tao had also silently forfeited. Everyone was very excited to be able to guess and win a prize. In the end, Higashio Motetsu, retired emperor, and Xiao each guessed one possibility and each received a bottle of healing medicine. Xiao felt that he had no use for it. After receiving it, he stuffed it to the Ice Beauty beside him. Keep it to protect yourself. Yen Luo's medicine is hard to buy outside. The Ice Beauty opened the bottle and sniffed it. Surprise appeared on her face. Although she didn't know much about medicine, she was used to dealing with these kinds of medicine. She could tell whether it was good or bad with just a sniff. This bottle of medicine was probably something that even the best Chinese medicine practitioner around her couldn't develop. She looked at Cheng Yenluo, who was calmly walking down the stage, and then looked at the other two winners. It seemed that everyone was used to her medicine. She realized that she was becoming more and more fussy after being with them. She couldn't help but silently close the bottle and put it in her sleeve. It was almost Tao Tao's turn. She stuffed her guqin into the arms of the person beside her. I'm not playing. Higashio Motetsu was admiring the sword dance on the stage when a guqin suddenly appeared in his arms. He couldn't help but raise his eyebrows and tease her out of habit. What's wrong? Do you think your guqin sounds as bad as a crow's? Tao Tao puffed up her cheeks. If you're willing to play with me, I'll play. Who said her guqin was bad? Her guqin skills were the most outstanding in the sect. He still had a smile on his face. Didn't I say that I don't know how to play? Why are you throwing a tantrum? Cao Cao took a deep breath, but she still couldn't calm the anger in her heart. I'm not throwing a tantrum. Then play with me once. Higashio Motetsu's expression dimmed. Cao Cao, I don't want to repeat it a third time. The anger in Cao Cao's heart finally dissipated. She knew that she might not be able to hear the sound of his flute in this lifetime. At this time, Hualing had already started announcing her program. Cao Cao stood up. Her long hair hung on both sides, covering her face. She laughed at herself. Since that was the case, she shouldn't pester him. This wasn't their sex style. Her Guqin was still in his arms. Higashio Motetsu looked at the somewhat lonely figure. He felt a little regretful, but he didn't want her to use this method to prove her importance in his heart. Cao Cao. When the words came out, he didn't know what to say. At this time, the disappointed girl in his eyes suddenly raised her head. The gloominess in her eyes was dispelled by the sunlight, and it was so bright that people didn't dare look straight at her. She tilted her head and revealed a brilliant smile. Higashio Motetsu, I'll dance for you. You have to watch carefully. He never thought that with her personality, it was already a surprise that she didn't fling her sleeves and leave. He never thought that she would even smile and say that she would dance for him. Watching her jump onto the stage, his mind was still filled with her dazzling smile from before. It was like the dark clouds had scattered, revealing a brilliant ray of light. Without any hindrance, it directly entered his heart. He reached out to his chest. There it seemed to be beating irregularly. Cao Cao stood in the center of the stage and gracefully faced the crowd. Then she bent down and pulled off the cloth around her ankles, revealing a string of golden bells. When she stood up, the bells on her wrists were also revealed. With her movements, the clear sound of the bells rang out. Her eyes looked at the astonished Higashio Motetsu. The corners of her mouth slightly curved, but her eyes were slightly bitter. She, the little magic doctor, never prepared for both sides because she was a confident person. Since she left the sect, she had never failed again. But in front of this man, all her pride and confidence could only be put away. If he was a city, then she was a failure who had repeatedly attacked the city. In fact, she never expected that he would pick up the flute again. She raised her hand and made a dancing gesture. Higashio Motetsu, although I have always failed, I will try to conquer you again. One day, you will be my city, and I will be the only one who owns it. The bell rang and danced. Chapter 1605. When she revealed the bells on her wrists and ankles, Higashio Motetsu finally understood that she already knew that he wouldn't play with her. That was why she had made other preparations, but he still disappointed her. He looked at the stage. She walked briskly, her graceful figure accompanied by the crisp sound of the bells. She spun and jumped. Her gaze never left him for every movement. Just as she said, she was dancing for him alone. There had never been a moment that made him feel so lost and his heart beat faster. Sister Cao Cao is dancing well. Xiao Kong clapped his two chubby hands and smiled. Chu Qingyan looked at the graceful dance on the stage, then turned to look at Dong Ting's focused expression. Her eyes curved. This pair was really pleasing to the eye. The last performance was Xiao Yao. Gong Sun Shui didn't expect him to have prepared a performance as well. She looked at him in surprise. Xiao Yao didn't go on stage immediately. Instead, he looked down at her with a happy smile. What do you like to hear? Gong Sun Shui was a little confused. Wasn't the performance already decided? Why did he ask her now? Just do what you want. He found it quite interesting to tease her. At least her face was no longer so cold. The smile on his face widened. I'm just asking. Just listen to me. Don't take it seriously. Only then did Gong Sun Shui realize that she had been fooled by him. She glared at him coldly. Xiao Yao immediately stopped when he was ahead. Otherwise, if he really provoked her, he would suffer. I'll go on stage first. I'm going to be late. With that, he quickly slipped away. Gong Sun Shui snorted coldly, as if she was the one holding him up. Although Xiao Yao had slipped away, in the eyes of outsiders, he walked like flowing water, still looking carefree and unruly. The folding fan in his hand had disappeared, and was replaced by a flute. He smiled brightly and held the flute to his lips. His gaze circled around the ice beauty's body. His fingers moved slightly, and the sound of the flute flowed out. The melody was melodious and smooth, and one could even hear the sound of wild geese chirping. In the blink of an eye, it was clear and cheerful, as if there was a stream flowing in front of one's eyes. After a while, the sound was distant and vast, as if one was in an endless grassland with blue sky and white clouds, making one feel relaxed and happy. Gong Sun Shui originally thought that this person was usually sloppy and didn't have any talent. At most he was a little smart. She didn't expect him to have such superb skills. The sound that came out of the flute was mellow, sometimes light, sometimes distant, and sometimes high and sometimes low. It was like sitting on a clear winter day and watching the clouds. It made people feel at peace. When she was learning martial arts, her master had once told her that swordsmanship was the same, but different people could produce different sounds. This was related to the person's state of mind and character. From this, it could be seen that if one did not have a certain amount of experience and an open mind, one would not be able to produce such a beautiful sound. Her gaze was fixed on the person on the stage. A gentle breeze blew his clothes, and his hair danced in the wind. He raised his arm slightly, and there was a smile on his face. In his eyes, there was a vast green mountain, and in his tune, there were thousands of miles of flowing clouds. He stood alone in the world. The young man in green was like the wind, upright and capricious, as if he didn't stop for anyone. She still didn't know him well. How could such a person be as unconventional as he appeared? Just like what Chu Qingyan said, everyone had a mask. What they showed was only the side they wanted others to see. Suddenly, a thought flashed through her mind. If there was time, she wanted to dig out the other side of this man. Unfortunately, there wasn't enough time. Just as she was immersed in the melody, he came down and sat beside her. He didn't look like the young master Xiao just now at all. He asked, "How is it? Were you stunned by what you heard?" "I'm not boasting, but among our emperor." No, among our brothers, my playing is unrivaled." Xiao almost spilled the beans. He immediately corrected himself, but Gong Sun Shui, who was in a trance, didn't notice. After a moment of silence, she praised, "It's very good." Xiao, who still wanted to boast and show off, was stunned by this praise. Soon, a bright smile appeared on his face, and it seemed like his smile was growing bigger and bigger. Gong Sun Shui saw his silly appearance and couldn't help shaking her head. It seemed like she shouldn't praise him in the future. His tail was about to fly to the sky. Although Xiao was the last performer, when Hualing went on stage to prepare for the next segment, Father Chu became unhappy. "White impermanence, I want to see your performance. Hurry, hurry, hurry." When his father-in-law said this, Xiao Su looked over. Hualing, who had received his master's silent order, wanted to cry. He only knew how to fight and kill. How could he know how to perform? But with his master and the old man looking at him like this, he couldn't back down. He could only agree. Hualing cupped his fists. "This one is untalented, so I'll show everyone a set of fist techniques." After saying this, he got into a horse stance and began to practice his fist techniques. In the blink of an eye, the person who had been smiling just now became serious. Every punch was powerful, and the sound of it breaking through the air could be heard. Gong Sun Shui's attention was immediately drawn over. Her gaze instantly focused. From the way these people usually walked, she could tell that their martial arts weren't low. But she didn't expect that just a casual set of fist techniques would be so solid and profound. If these people were really opponents, then the Moon Clan was in danger. When this thought flashed through her mind, she couldn't help but tighten her grip. Previously, she had wanted to hide here for a while to avoid those assassins. However, after staying here for a long time, she realized that the guards here were all experts who were not inferior to her. She suddenly became curious about their identities. To be able to have so many experts as guards, these people must not be ordinary people. She had been in North Korea for so long, but she had never heard of any aristocratic family with such strong strength. She wanted to know more about them so that she could find out their identities. Little did she know that these people were all slippery loaches, and there were no signs that she could follow. Later on, she gave up. She couldn't do anything by herself. But she didn't expect that these people were actually involved with the Japanese. She had been too careless. She shouldn't have stayed here because of a moment of impulse. She should have gone back to take charge of the situation. At this time, Xiao saw that her expression was a little strange. He couldn't help but frown worriedly. Are you feeling unwell? Is it a wound? Do you want Yanluo to take a look? Hearing Xiao's concerned and anxious tone, Gongsun Shui realized that she had revealed her emotions. Fortunately, this person didn't think too much. She shook her head and said calmly, "It's nothing. I was just thinking about something and got distracted. Let's continue watching." Xiao wanted to say something, but Hualing had already finished his fist and started the next segment. He couldn't help but purse his lips, and a complicated expression flashed through his eyes. Chapter 1606. This segment was an interactive game that was mainly about playing around. Although it was a game, no one present had ever heard of the way it was played. They couldn't help but express their curiosity and anticipation. The game's name was gesticulating. The rules were that two people were in a team. One was responsible for gesticulating while the other was responsible for guessing. Within the allotted time, the team that guessed more would win. Once Hualing finished explaining the rules, everyone was eager to try it out. Xiao wanted to pull the ice beauty onto the stage, but at this time, the retired emperor came over and directly pulled him away. He cried out, "Grandfather, what are you looking for me for? Don't you have a partner?" The retired emperor waved his hand and said with a smile, "Chu Huayuan went to find his wife. I'm the only one left. Everyone else is in pairs, so it's not good to separate them. So as my grandson, this is the best time for you to fulfill your filial piety." Xiao wanted to cry but had no tears. "My God, you didn't separate others, but ran over to separate your grandson. What kind of logic was this?" But at this time his imperial grandfather had already nimbly gone to Hualing to sign him up. What else could he say? He could only turn his head and cast an apologetic look at the ice beauty. When Gong Suanxue met his gaze, her expression was still without a ripple. But when she thought of how he couldn't resist when the old grandfather pulled him over, it was really funny. The game segment began. The first group was Cheng Yanluo and Ethereal. Hualing ordered someone to set up the hourglass. When the hourglass turned, the competition began. With many years of tacit understanding, Cheng Yanluo and Ethereal completed 8 words in the allotted time. The two looked at each other and smiled. They happily stood on the other side of the stage, ready to watch the other's performance. The second group was the retired emperor, and Xiao's turn. Xiao was pushed over to gesticulate. Before the competition began, the retired emperor waved his fist at him. "Good grandson, be serious. I want to take the first prize." Xiao replied energetically, "I know." The servant had already taken the board and written on it. When the competition began, he began to flip through the pages. The first was drinking wine. Xiao gestured with a cup. The retired emperor immediately said, "Gem." Xiao shook his head and gestured with a drinking gesture. The retired emperor immediately said, "Sword swallowing." Everyone who knew the answer was amused. Xiao continued to shake his head. Then he walked a few steps and swayed, indicating that he was drunk. At this time, the retired emperor somewhat understood. Drunk. Xiao immediately nodded and made a drinking gesture. The retired emperor said resolutely, "Drink." The second was dancing. The corners of Xiao's mouth twitched. What kind of question was this? He waved his hand and moved his legs. Retired emperor, exercise. He frowned and decided to go all out. Hence he softened his movements and imitated Tao Tao's dance moves. Retired emperor, epilepsy. Pahaha. Seeing this scene, everyone was about to burst out laughing. It was too funny. Below the stage, Gongsun Shui was also amused by Xiao's behavior. Her cold face cracked into a rare smile. Xiao originally wanted to give up, but when he saw the ice-cold beauty's rainbow-like smile, he couldn't help but think that if he could make her smile, he would be willing to do anything stupid. It was no wonder that King Yu of Zhou used a beacon fire to make her smile. Today he was really obsessed, but he was willing to do it. In the end, the retired emperor still couldn't guess the answer. However, until the time was up, the grandfather and grandson still managed to answer 9 questions correctly. The result was very good. Finally, it was over. Xiao Yao supported his waist. For the ice-cold beauty for the game, he really went all out. I didn't expect my good grandson to be able to dance. It's a pity that your dancing is too difficult to compliment. Otherwise, Grandpa would definitely be able to guess it. When the two of them stood in the corner, retired emperor began to laugh and ridicule him. Xiao Yao knew that his grandfather loved to tease him, but he didn't argue, because all his thoughts were on the ice-cold beauty. From the moment he started guessing, he realized that the ice-cold beauty was completely focused on the competition. It was obvious that she really liked this segment. When it was over, he would also play this game with her. He believed that with his strong body language and her intelligence, they would be very compatible. The third round was Father and Mother Chu. Father Chu gestured while Mother Chu guessed. Father Chu had always been a creative person, so one could imagine how ridiculous this round was. Everyone's eyes were firmly fixed on it. Chu Qingyan laughed until her stomach hurt. She felt that her father wasn't participating in a game, but was performing a skit. If there was a chance next time, she would personally arrange a few skits for everyone to laugh. The ice-cold beauty sat quietly, watching the fun on the stage. She was suspicious of these people. When Qingyu came over yesterday, most of her guesses were confirmed. However, at this moment, when she looked at these people who had different personalities, loved each other, and got along well with each other, she felt that such a happy family without any scheming against each other wouldn't be involved in a power struggle at all. She wondered if their information was wrong. Thinking of this, she smiled slightly. Gongsun Shui, are you deceiving yourself? Or are you trying to excuse them? When did you become like this? Just as the lively scene on the stage was in full swing, Gongsun Shui saw Qiu Feng waving at her while panting. She was afraid that Qiu Feng would be exposed, so she asked her to stay in the yard. She didn't expect her to appear here. Qiu Feng wouldn't be so flustered if it wasn't something serious. She immediately stopped smiling. Gongsun Shui said to the servant beside her, "If second master asks, just tell him that I'll be back soon." After saying that, she told the servant not to follow her and walked towards Qiu Feng. Because everyone was attracted by Father Chu's exaggerated gestures, no one noticed what happened here. No one knew when Gongsun Shui left. Qiu Feng rushed over as soon as she reached the corner. "What's the hurry? Did you forget what I taught you before?" Gongsun Shui was a bit displeased. Qiu Feng knew that she was being rash, but the situation was urgent, and she didn't have time to think. "Sect Master, the high priest sent someone over just now to say that they've found the true identity of the Xiao family." Gongsun Shui's eyes narrowed and she slowly clenched her fists in her sleeves. She tried to calm down. "Speak." Qiu Feng immediately said, "They're in cahoots with Murong Yunxian. Murong Yunsun fled to another country, and these people took him in. This time, they're here to help Murong Yunxian take revenge on our Yu family." Although she already guessed it, Gongsun Shui was still stunned when she heard such accurate news. The high priest said that since the Xiao family could raise Murong Yunxian to be so outstanding, they definitely aren't small fries. He wants you to leave immediately. Otherwise, if your identity is exposed, your life will be in danger, Qiu Feng said anxiously. "Is that so?" At this moment, a voice interrupted the conversation between the master and servant. The tone was very light, and it was impossible to tell whether the speaker was happy or angry. Qiu Feng immediately pulled out her dagger. "Who is it?" Before Gongsun Shui could recover from her shock, her eyes widened again when she heard the voice. However, when the man in the green robe with black hair appeared in front of her, she was completely speechless. Chapter 1607. "You, why are you here?" Gongsun Shui looked at the person who appeared in front of her and pursed her lips. If she didn't calculate the time wrongly, he should still be on the stage watching the fourth team's competition. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come out to meet Qiu Feng so easily. However, she could calculate the time, but she couldn't calculate a person's heart. Because Xiao Yao's mind was on her, no matter how exciting the competition on the stage was, he still put half of his attention on her. So when she suddenly left the stage, he noticed it. Also, he saw Qiu Feng's figure and thought that something big had happened. He was worried and left the stage early. But he didn't expect that as soon as he arrived, he heard Qiu Feng's words that shocked him so much that he couldn't think. Xiao Yao stared at the person in front of him, as if he wanted to see through her. Gong Sun Shui also felt his gaze and mocked herself. She didn't expect that after hiding for so long, she still fell short. Qiu Feng didn't expect Xiao Yao to follow her. With the dagger in her hand and the words just now, she knew that she was exposed. So she immediately moved in front of her sect master. As long as he came forward, she wouldn't be polite. Xiao Yao didn't look at Qiu Feng and didn't care about the sharp dagger pointed at him. He looked at Gong Sun Shui with bright eyes and said slowly, "Sun Shui is your alias, right? Who are you?" Smiling was his normal state. It was as if no matter when, he couldn't be stopped from smiling. However, this was the first time she saw him without a smile on his face. It seemed a little distant and cold, as if she couldn't feel any warmth anymore. She closed her eyes and suppressed the chaotic emotions in her heart. When she opened her eyes again, she had already recovered her usual coldness. She said, "I'm Gong Sun Shui, the leader of the Moon Clan and the sect master of the Moon Clan." Gong Sun Shui? This name suddenly jumped out from his memory. Oh right, his royal brother once said that the sect master of the Moon Clan was called this name. Some time ago, she was assassinated and her whereabouts were unknown. He thought about how he saved her the moment they arrived in this town, and she avoided answering the identity of the assassins. It was as if the pearls scattered all over the ground suddenly had a string, stringing them together one by one. Finally, when they were complete, they formed a trap. A trap. So you won't tell me where your family is? You won't let me avenge you or reveal any information about your identity? Xiao Yao lowered his eyebrows and gave a self-deprecating smile. I should have thought of it. I should have thought of it. How could a girl be alone? How could a killer chase after you for no reason? If you didn't tell me, I wouldn't ask. I thought those were your taboos and I shouldn't touch them. I didn't expect that it would end like this. My brother has reminded me so many times, but I chose to believe you and ignored those problems. In the end, he was talking to himself. Gong Sun Shui couldn't bear to see him like this. She looked at him apologetically. She had just raised her head when she saw him looking up. His eyes were distant and unfamiliar. Since you're hiding your identity, why are you still staying? The war between the Sun-Moon race and the Sun-Moon race has already broken out. What are you doing in our little temple instead of taking charge of the overall situation? We can't tolerate a great Buddha like you. The situation was still developing as she expected. Gong Sun Shui pursed her lips and looked at him, unable to say a word. Let me answer for her. As soon as he finished speaking, another person appeared in the corner. My brother? Xiao Yao looked at the person in front of him in surprise. Xiao Su looked at Xiao Yao and raised his eyebrows. It was as if he was disdainful of Xiao Yao's stupidity. As expected, the little guy was right. People in love generally had lower IQs. The reason why Sect Master Gong Sun stayed was very simple. She was injured and needed treatment. Furthermore, the killers were still looking for her. She had lost contact with her subordinates, so it was the best choice for her to take refuge here. However, as the sect master of a race, her ability to read people's expressions is not weak. She noticed that we were different from the people of North Korea, so she began to suspect our identities. After Xiao Su finished speaking, he raised his eyebrows at Gong Sun Shui. Sect Master Gong Sun, am I right? Gong Sun Shui's body stiffened. Although she hadn't seen this person much, he was able to guess her thoughts so clearly. He was indeed not simple. Gong Sun Shui narrowed her eyes and looked at Xiao Su cautiously. That's right. But how did you guess? I don't think I've done anything out of line during this period. Xiao Su put his hands behind his back and said slowly, it's very simple. The timing of your appearance was too sensitive. Furthermore, Xiao Yao is my younger brother. I have to be on guard against the people around him, so that he won't be fooled. However, he was fooled in the end. Xiao Yao's mouth twitched. Although he knew that his brother was concerned about him, he felt very embarrassed when he said that. At this time, Xiao Su continued. We found out that Sect Master Yue went missing at the same time as you met second brother. However, This doesn't mean anything. It could be a coincidence. However, when Ethereal was treating you, he noticed that your inner strength was very strong. Furthermore, from your clothes, it could be seen that your background is not ordinary. Later, what really made me suspicious was that you asked Xiao to take in a servant girl. Gong Sun Shui didn't think that her mistake would be because of this. Actually, you've already noticed me. Otherwise, he wouldn't have paid attention to these things. It seemed that this person was just as she had expected. He was meticulous and as cunning as a wolf. You can say that. This was an instinct that had been accumulated over many years. However, Xiao wouldn't tell her this. If it wasn't for the fact that the little fellow thought highly of second brother and Gong Sun Shui, he wouldn't have wasted so much time talking to her. At this time, after listening to the conversation between the two, Xiao had a general understanding of the situation. After being in the palace for so many years, as long as he used his brain a little, it was easy to understand. He originally thought that he had left behind all the scheming and fighting, but he didn't think that he would walk into it again. Moreover, it was when he was unprepared. He laughed lightly, but it didn't reach his eyes. His gaze shot towards the girl in front of him. So all this time you've been using me? Using him to stay here and investigate, using his affection for her as a cover. These words were like the scorching light of summer, making it impossible for her to hide. Gong Sun Shui pursed her lips tightly, but didn't know how to refute. She didn't think this way, but when she did, it was like this. Her silent agreement was no doubt an admission. Xiao laughed lightly and wiped his face, as if to wipe away the defeat and discomfort in his heart. Unfortunately, he still didn't feel good in his heart. He opened his mouth to say something to Gong Sun Shui, but at this time, a shout rang through the sky. Assassin! Chapter 1608. That voice came from the direction of the stage. Before the voice had even died away, Xiao Su's figure flashed and disappeared from the spot. Xiao and Gong Sun Shui looked at each other, then followed their royal brother and ran back. Qiu Feng heaved a sigh of relief. Xiao Su's aura was too strong, and she almost couldn't breathe. She immediately turned around and said, "Sect Master, let's leave while they're not here." Gong Sun Shui heard the shouting and killing getting more and more intense. She frowned and said, "Let's go and take a look." Qiu Feng widened her eyes and shouted in disapproval, "Sect Master." Gong Sun Shui turned her back to Qiu Feng and said in a low voice, "I can't leave now." After saying that, Gong Sun Shui quickly went back the way she came. "But the High Priestess and the others are waiting outside." Qiu Feng muttered. She had no choice but to release the signal and follow. Xiao Su was the first to arrive. He kicked away the two killers who had just walked in front of the little fellow and hugged her to check if she was injured. Chu Qingyan squeezed his hand and shook her head. "I'm fine. Don't forget that my martial arts are not bad." Xiao Su heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that the person in front of him could still joke. He naturally knew how good her martial arts were, but things were different now. She had a child in her belly, so she couldn't let her guard down. "Don't move. Leave the rest to me." Afraid that she wouldn't listen, he patted her head and added, "Don't be willful." Chu Qingyan stuck out her tongue, indicating that she wouldn't make a move easily. Xiao Su was relieved. Xiao Kong was already in the retired emperor's arms. When he saw that his eldest grandson had returned, he immediately went over with a serious face. "Who are these people? Why are they attacking us for no reason? Could it be that Jin Xian's identity exposed us?" Xiao Su didn't answer. He looked at Xiao, who was walking quickly towards him. He heard every word of what his royal grandfather said. He wanted to ask his royal brother about it, but when he turned around and met his royal brother's gaze, he immediately understood who these people were after. The smile on Xiao's face disappeared. "Royal brother, what should we do?" Xiao Su smiled faintly. "What else can we do? They're already here. How can we let them bully us?" As soon as he said that, the fierce cavalry rushed forward and fought fiercely. Xiao nodded and turned. When Gong Sunshui returned to the stage, she saw that the crowd was fighting with a group of men in black. Those men looked familiar. Weren't they the men who had tried to kill her before? However, her gaze was quickly attracted by the green-robed figure. Out of so many people, she was able to see him at first glance. He didn't have any weapons. He used his fan as a blade and flipped it around. He shuttled through the crowd with ease and methodically reaped the lives of his opponents. He had a faint smile on his face, but it wasn't his usual arrogant smile, nor was it his usual gentle smile, nor was it a teasing smile. Instead, it was a cold smile that was mixed with the coldness of winter, causing people to feel a chill in their hearts. Looking at his smooth movements and killing moves, she suddenly understood why he didn't want to compete with her that day. He said that he wouldn't bully the little girl. She thought he was joking, but she didn't expect that it was true. His martial arts were not inferior to hers. At this moment, the two sides separated. "Who are you? Why are you trespassing?" Ling asked with his sword in hand. The leader of the black-clothed men saw that his side had suffered heavy casualties, while the other side had light injuries. They were all in high spirits. The situation was not good for them. The leader of the black-clothed men stepped forward and said, "We only want one person today. As long as you don't make things difficult for us and let us take her away, we won't be enemies with you." "You want to take someone away from us? Don't even think about it." Turin was by Jean Xian's side. He was in charge of mobilizing the fierce blade cavalry. Ling was the only cavalry leader and spoke on behalf of the cavalry. The leader of the black-clothed men mocked, "Little brat, don't be too arrogant. Don't think that we don't know your identity and your relationship with Morong Yinxian is enough for us to get rid of you. If you don't want to take our kill order, then hand over the person, and we won't bother you anymore." Xiao played with the fan in his hand and his smile was a bit annoying. "You say it like you're the ones who have the upper hand. The winner takes all. Do you believe that if we fight for another hour, none of you will be able to escape? Compared to leaving behind a disaster, I'm more willing to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots." Although Xiao was smiling, his last sentence carried a biting cold wind, causing people to tremble with fear. Although they were facing enemies, those who knew Xiao couldn't help looking at him. Did this fellow eat the wrong medicine? Why was he so agitated? Although the leader of the black-clothed men felt a bit guilty, when he thought of the task given to him by his superiors, he angrily shouted, "Where did this brat come from? I won't talk nonsense with you. Are you going to hand over the person or not? Let me give you a piece of advice. A strong dragon can't suppress a local snake. A wise man submits to circumstances. You're the brat. You scolded me, white impermanence, and even scolded me, little fan. Do you want me to beat you into an ugly monster?" Father Chu couldn't help but roll up his sleeves and rush out. Fortunately, Mother Chu had foreseen this and immediately pulled him back. Chu Qingyan stood beside Xiao Su as she raised her eyebrows and sneered. "You keep asking us to hand over the hostage. May I ask who you are after?" Before the leader of the black-clothed men could speak, a figure stood out. "They're after me." "Miss Sun?" Chu Qingyan looked at the girl in white with surprise. The leader of the black-clothed men laughed as if he had thought of something. He looked at the people present as if he was watching a good show. "Miss Sun? Haha, you've all been fooled by her. Her I didn't." "Shut up. You don't have the right to speak here." Xiao reprimanded coldly. The leader of the black-clothed men looked at the fierce cavalry standing around him, but he didn't dare to speak. Cheng Yanluo and the rest looked at Xiao and Gong Suanxue, but no one said anything. At this time, no one would embarrass their own family. Gong Suanxue didn't expect that Xiao would still choose to protect her at this time. She suppressed all her emotions and turned around to face Chu Qingyan and the rest, saying slowly, "He's right. I lied to you. My surname is Gong Sun, and my name is Xue. I'm the current sect master of the Dim Moon sect. I'm indebted to you all for taking care of me these days, and investigating your identities. I'm very sorry, but I don't regret it." These words caused a huge commotion. Everyone looked at each other. Jean Xian was fighting the enemy at the front lines, but the leader of the enemy was with them. It was like placing gunpowder beside them. However, after these days of interaction, they didn't know what to say. Gong Suanxue didn't seem to care about their reaction at all. She didn't look at Xiao and turned to the leader of the black-clothed men, saying, "This has nothing to do with them. Don't make things difficult for them. I'll go with you." Chapter 1609. The leader originally thought that it was hopeless, but Gong Sun Xue's words instantly gave him confidence. He nodded without hesitation. Okay. Just as Gong Sun Xue was about to step forward, a hand stopped her and pulled her back. Don't even think about taking anyone away from us. I've never been so embarrassed before. Gong Sun Xue didn't expect him to suddenly protect her behind him. She was stunned for a moment. She was actually blocked by him. Xiao, I'm fine. Let me go with them. She subconsciously tugged at his sleeve. Xiao didn't even turn his head. Don't try to be brave. We'll deal with you later. This was the first time someone had scolded her for trying to be brave. In fact, she had already thought of a way out. Qingyu had come to pass the message, which meant that the high priest and the others weren't far away. As long as she left the Xiao residence, the high priest and the others would know. At that time, Xiao and the others wouldn't be implicated. But in front of her, Xiao was like a mountain standing in front of her. It was as if he was blocking the wind and rain in front of her. For a moment she couldn't refute him. He was already disappointed in her. If he knew her plan, he would probably be angrier and more disappointed. Chu Qingyan glanced at Big Ice beside her. He stood by her side to protect her. He didn't care about anything else and left the situation to Xiao. She suddenly understood and stood to the side to watch. Today the second brother and the Ice Beauty were the main characters. As spectators, they just had to do their part. The leader couldn't understand why Xiao would protect Gong Sun Xue after being deceived. However, anyone who tried to stop his mission deserved to die. Brat, have you forgotten your identity? You and Morong Yunxian are acquaintances, so you should be her sworn enemy. What do you mean by protecting her today? Do you want to raise a tiger and invite calamity? Aren't you afraid that she'll turn against you? These words made Gong Sun Xue clench her fists. However, the person standing in front of her was as still as a rock. The leader continued, his eyes flashing with hostility. Or do you plan to capture her and send her to the front line to give Morong Yunxian another bargaining chip? Gong Sun Xue seemed to think of something. Her lips turned pale. She had lied to him and everyone. With their relationship with Morong Yunxian, they wouldn't let her go easily. Feeling the emotional fluctuations of the person behind him, Xiao laughed at himself. As expected, she didn't believe him. At this time, Xiao Su felt that he had given them enough time. He made a gesture with his cold eyes. There was no killing intent in them, but it was chilling. It's about time. Don't waste time talking nonsense with them. When Huoling and the others received the order and were about to make a move, there was a sudden rush of footsteps. Chu Qingyan narrowed her eyes. Was there going to be more scenes? Dozens of people wearing blue and white clothes appeared in front of everyone. Needless to say, they were from the Moon Clan. The old man in the lead walked quickly towards Gong Suanxue with a pear blossom walking stick in his hand. He then bowed to Gong Suanxue and said, Lan Si is late. Please forgive me, sect master. I'll come back to receive my punishment after I've dealt with these assassins. After confirming that the other party wasn't the Ice Beauty's enemy, Xiao had already quietly retreated, revealing the person behind him. Gong Suanxue immediately helped High Priest Lan Si up and said, High Priest, please don't say that. You just came out of seclusion, and you're already involved in this kind of thing. I'm very ashamed. Sect Master is in trouble. How can this old man stand by and watch? Lan Si immediately turned to look at the black-clothed leader. Your flowing cloud pavilion has guts. You actually dare to make a move on Sect Master. Although the other party had many people, the black-clothed leader wasn't afraid. He looked at the people on both sides and said with a smile, High Priest should know that our flowing cloud pavilion only recognizes money and not people. When we receive money, we'll help. However, we were careless this time and missed the chance to capture Sect Master Yu. We'll let you off this time. See you again. After speaking, the black-clothed leader waved his hand and brought everyone to retreat quickly. The black-clothed leader calculated that with the Xiao clan present, the Yu sect wouldn't make a move on him because they were worried that the Xiao clan would turn around and attack them. So if they didn't escape now, when would they? Once the black-clothed people retreated, only Xiao and the high priest were left on the scene. Unknowingly, the two sides had already become enemies. Ling looked at the scene and asked softly, Master, what should we do? Listen to second master. Xiao Su took a chair and helped the little fellow to sit down. Then he also sat down at the side. His expression was indifferent, as if the situation in front of him was just a fight between two children. There wasn't anything interesting about it at all. Ling let out an ah, and scratched his head in confusion. Then he heard his master say gently to the little princess consort, This angle is the best for sunbathing. Master still had the mood to joke around at a time like this? And the worst thing was that the little princess consort actually nodded in agreement. When he heard his royal brother say that he had full control over the fierce cavalry, Xiao Yao understood. From the start, when he faced off with the black-clothed leader, it was his royal brother who had intentionally facilitated it. Now he was even giving him a chance to settle the matter between him and the Ice Beauty. But now that everyone was watching, how could he have a good talk with the Ice Beauty? You guys are in cahoots with Morong Yinxian. You guys actually want to take over Ru clan's territory. What wishful thinking. When Xiao Tong said this angrily, Gong Sunshui knew that the window paper between her and Xiao Yao that had not been broken yet was no longer there. She was the leader of the Yu clan, and he was Morong Yinxuan's man. At this moment, they were only opponents. This was the reason why she had refused to admit it when he had asked her if they were friends. Because she had already expected this moment to come. Destiny made fools of people. Everything was already set in stone. Xiao Yao opened his fan and smiled as usual. Your words are a bit unkind. Jin Xian no, the Morong Yunxian you speak of, was originally the future leader of the Sun clan. If it wasn't for your Yu clan's despicable methods, the Sun clan wouldn't have fallen into your hands. Speaking of which, who is the one who is trying to take over whose territory? Qing Yu sneered. The winner is king, the loser is a bandit. The Sun clan didn't have the ability to protect their territory, who can they blame? Xiao Yao's lips curled into a smile, like the brightest star in the sky. Oh, then according to your words, Morong Yinxian is just taking back what belongs to him. The winner is king, the loser is a bandit. Everyone is relying on their own abilities. How can you accuse us of being in cahoots? You can't just let the officials set fires and not let the common people light lamps. Who was Xiao Yao? He was known for his sophistry. With his silver tongue, he didn't have to worry about refuting the other party. Qing Yu and Xiao Tong were speechless. Even Lan Si, who disdained to talk to Xiao Yao, was so angry that her face turned green. Father Chu clapped his hands. Little fan, you're awesome. Cheng Yanluo and the others smiled. Chapter 1610. However, there were two people who couldn't laugh. One was Gong Sunshui, and the other was Xiao Yao himself. At a time like this, he couldn't just stand by and do nothing. No matter who Gong Sunshui was, he was the one who caused this. He couldn't let anyone insult his family. But by doing so, he would also hurt Gong Sunshui. This was what it meant to hurt one's enemy at the expense of one's own men. Gong Sunshui knew that he was telling the truth. She didn't participate in the battle back then, but she admitted that the previous sect master had made a lot of mistakes. However, as the leader of the Yu clan, she couldn't admit it even if she was wrong. She raised her hand to stop her subordinates and looked at Xiao Yao. Although he still looked carefree and cheerful, she could feel that his aura had changed. It was a powerful aura that came from a superior. It wasn't something an ordinary person had. Although she knew that he was related to Morong Yinxian, she didn't know his true identity. If he came from another country, he might not be from a noble family, but a royal family member. However, this wasn't the time to figure it out. She calmed herself down and said, "Let's talk." Xiao Yao's eyes darkened when he heard this. His gaze stopped at a plum tree not far away. He said lightly, "Talk about what? What else was there to talk about?" He laughed at himself silently in his heart. Gong Sunshui couldn't see his expression and didn't know what he was thinking. "Let us go. What are your conditions?" Xiao Tong couldn't help but mutter, "Sect master, they're rebels. Why do we have to negotiate with them? At most, we'll fight them. I don't believe we can't beat them." Although they didn't have many people, they weren't any less than the Xiao clan. She didn't believe they couldn't subdue them. Qingyu immediately covered her mouth and scolded softly. Shut up. The sect master has her reasons. Don't interrupt. Didn't you see that the high priestess didn't say anything? Qiao Tong wasn't the only one who didn't understand. Everyone else was as well. However, they chose to listen to the sect master's orders. The high priestess glanced at the fierce cavalry, and then at her own people. She didn't need to fight to know that she was no match for them. These people were well trained and had powerful martial arts. Even the Flowing Cloud Pavilion, who was known as the #1 assassin in North Korea, was no match for them. Clearly, the sect master had seen through it as well. Therefore, he chose to negotiate after assessing the situation. However, the current situation was obviously not in their favor. This was because they were in the Xiao clan's territory. Moreover, although the other party did not have many people, they were skilled. One of them was equivalent to 10 of them. If Xiao Yao was unwilling to negotiate, they had no choice but to fight to the death. No matter what, the sect leader could not fall into the hands of the Xiao clan. Otherwise, the Moon clan would really be finished. At this time, Higashio Motetsu crossed his arms and leaned against the table, laughing mockingly. Can you shrimp soldiers and crab generals compare to the famous fierce cavalry? What an arrogant fool. Let's not talk about how many people you brought. Just based on your identities and the fact that this is the Sun clan's territory, there are plenty of people who want your lives. So don't be so arrogant. Read more books, practice more martial arts, and look in the mirror more often to see if your face is still there. Higashio Motetsu's words caused the Moon clan's people's expressions to change. Ever since they unified North Korea more than 10 years ago, they had never received such blatant provocation. Qingyu was full of vigor. She drew her sword and charged forward. Who do you think you are? Our sect master is speaking. There's no room for you to interrupt. After she said that, Gong Sun Shui and the rest reacted. She was already in front of them, and it was too late to stop her. They probably didn't think that the usually calm Qingyu would have such an impulsive moment. However, Xiao Yao and the others didn't pay any attention to Qingyu's aggressive attack. It was as if they didn't see it at all. Higashio Motetsu smirked. He raised his leg and accidentally kicked Qingyu's abdomen. She flew out and landed heavily in front of Lan Si and the rest. You overestimate yourself. His voice wasn't loud, but it spread throughout the entire courtyard and landed heavily on the hearts of Qingyu and the rest. Qiao Tong and Qiao Feng didn't have time to be shocked. They immediately went forward to help Qingyu up and check that he wasn't injured. Just a casual move was enough to send the leader of Gong Sun Shui's personal guards flying. How terrifying was this person's martial arts? Gong Sun Shui didn't expect that there were so many hidden talents in the Xiao family. Even Higashio Motetsu, who was usually sloppy, wasn't a simple character. Higashio Motetsu's kick was like a slap to their faces. They looked at each other and suddenly understood why the suzerain chose to negotiate instead of fighting. It was because they were no match for Qingyu at all. In fact, Higashio Motetsu felt wronged. He hated it when his friends were bullied. If it was before, he would definitely beat them until they vomited blood. However, Qingyan was pregnant. He didn't want to see blood, so he controlled his strength. If Qingyu knew the truth, she would probably vomit blood. Gong Sun Shui immediately ordered people to take Qingyu away. She looked a bit pale. She cupped her hands and said to Xiao Yao and the rest, "It's my fault. Please forgive me." Hearing her formal words and distant tone, Xiao Yao's smile became more and more sarcastic. "It's okay." Chu Qingyan, who was watching from the side, poked her big ice block's arm and said softly, "Second brother should be very sad now." Xiao Su glanced at the people standing nearby and snorted. "He asked for it." Chu Qingyan shook her head. "You can't say that. He doesn't know where it came from." Xiao Su pinched her face and didn't say anything else. He probably agreed with her. At this moment, the negotiation was still going on. Gong Sun Shui seemed to not see his smile and continued. "If you want money, just say it." "We don't lack money." Xiao Yao shook his head. What a big tone. There shouldn't be anyone in this world who dared to say that they didn't lack money. However, thinking of what happened just now, the Serene Moon sect people still chose to keep quiet. "Then what do you want?" Lan Si narrowed her eyes and said in an unfriendly tone. Xiao Yao chuckled. We never wanted anything. You're thinking too much. Don't use your power to bully others. Qiu Tong said hatefully. Xiao Yao laughed even more arrogantly. If you want to use your power, you have to have power. Moreover, isn't it more appropriate for you to use these words? Gong Sun Shui, who had been calm all this while, saw that this person was still stubborn after saying so much. She couldn't help but feel anxious. Xiao Yao, what do you want to do? If you're angry at me, don't take it out on others and make things difficult for them. At this time, Xiao Yao, who had not looked at her all this while, seemed to have some ripples in his eyes when he heard that. However, he suppressed it. When he met Gong Sun Shui's gaze, there were no ripples. You can leave. Chapter 16:11. The moment these words came out, the aggressive Tranquil Moon sect group was stunned. They all exchanged glances, not knowing how to react. Gong Sun Shui was the same. You're saying that you're letting us go? She was uncertain. Xiao Yao chuckled. That's right. We have no enmity with you. Why should we make things difficult for you? Jin Xian, oh no, Morong Yunxian you're talking about. When we let him do his thing, we said that we won't interfere with your politics. We're only here to have fun. The Tranquil Moon sect was somewhat dubious about this explanation. However, Gong Sun Shui, who had interacted with them for a while, believed it. She looked at the person in front of her. But isn't Morong Yunxian your relative? Xiao Yao chuckled. That's right. But that guy prefers to take revenge himself. Then, Miss Gongsun, we've never thought of hurting you. Whether we know your identity or not, we've already treated you as a friend. The conflict between the Sun and Moon clans has nothing to do with us. If there are no accidents, we won't interfere. So don't worry. Compared to scheming, we're more inclined to fight fairly. Chu Qingyan's clear voice sounded. Only then did the Dim Moon sect members notice the beautiful girl sitting at the back. Friend. This word struck Gong Sun Shui's heart. She couldn't help but tremble slightly. She turned to look. Chu Qingyan was smiling kindly at her without any hostility. The Xiao clan was so powerful and had such strong support. They actually said that they wouldn't interfere with the politics of the Sun and Moon clans. Lan Si and the rest were delighted. So you can leave. After Xiao Yao finished speaking, Hualing ordered everyone to keep their weapons and leave. The door of the Xiao clan was also opened. It was as if they were really sending the guests away. Although I really want you to stay for our banquet, I don't think you're in the mood. So take care. Come and play when you're free. Chu Qingyan smiled and waved at Gong Sun Shui. However, everyone knew that they would be strangers once they stepped out of this door. The relationship between the Sun and Moon clans was there. No one could cross it. Everyone please. Hualing Jasper stood on both sides and extended her hand to politely invite them in. All of this was too unexpected. It was as if they had already prepared for the worst to face the flood and ferocious beasts, but the other party said that they were not here to take their lives, and even kindly let them pass. This was simply too surprising. Lan Si said to the silent Gong Sun Shui, Sect leader, let's go. There are still many things waiting for you to deal with. Actually, he should be worried that the Xiao clan would go back on their word, so he should leave as soon as possible to avoid any more trouble. Gong Suanxue pursed her lips. When she looked at Xiao Yao again, the place where he had been standing was already empty. Her expression changed slightly. She looked around, but she only had time to see the corner of a blue robe fluttering in the wind. Then the person had disappeared. After this incident, she and Xiao Yao might never meet again. She mocked herself in her heart, and then bowed to the Xiao family. Thank you for taking care of me during this time. See you again. With that, she turned around resolutely and left with the Tranquil Moon Sect's group. After exiting the Xiao family's door, Lan Si and the rest heaved a sigh of relief. Qiu Feng said with lingering fear, Sect leader, if the Xiao family really doesn't interfere, it will only be beneficial to us. While everyone was rejoicing, Gong Suanxue did not think so. If not for the fact that they thought that Morong Yunxian could take charge, the Xiao family would not have made such a promise so easily. Hence, Morong Yunxuan's side could not be underestimated. Gong Suanxue turned back to look at the Xiao family's mansion. Many scenes flashed past her mind. Finally, it stopped at the last moment when Xiao looked at her. His clear eyes were filled with disappointment. Many complicated emotions surged in her heart. Let's go. Gong Sun Shui left these words behind and strode forward, leaving the mansion behind her. Qiu Tong touched the back of her head. Why do I feel that sect leader's mood is very low? Qiu Feng, who had stayed in the Xiao family for a period of time, sighed faintly. She could not tell them that it was because sect leader felt guilty. Hence, she shut her mouth tightly, shook her head, and quickly followed. After the destruction just now, the entire courtyard needed to be cleaned and tidied up. Hence, Chu Qingyan announced that the banquet would be temporarily suspended and would be held next time. As for the last segment of the banquet, the delicacies would be served at tonight's banquet. Then she ordered Jasper to lead people to start cleaning up. Regarding today's incident, no one said anything. It was as if two groups of uninvited guests were just going through the motions. Hence, everyone returned to their own courtyards and looked forward to tonight's banquet. After everyone left, Chu Qingyan crossed her arms and looked at the person in front of her with a half-smile. Seeing her interrogative look, Xiao quickly understood what she wanted to ask. Without waiting for her to speak, he took the initiative to confess. I have always suspected Gong Suanshua's identity. However, you were pregnant, so I did not tell you. I was worried that it would affect you and the child. I didn't think that she would be the sect leader of the Tranquil Moon sect. She was a little surprised. Actually, what her identity is has nothing to do with us. It's just that she provoked second brother. Xiao Su's tone was filled with dissatisfaction. Big Ice Cube was indeed protective. Clearly, it was second brother who provoked her, okay? So, you left for a while just now because of this matter. She did not even notice that someone had left just now. Xiao Su did not deny it. He had already sent people to keep an eye on her. Hence, when she informed the outside world, he already knew. Chu Qingyan thought that it was just as she had expected. Big Ice Cube had grown up in scheming and fighting, so he had his own set of judgment standards. Hence, it was normal that he was sharper than others. However, she touched her chin. There were so many obvious details. If it was in the past, she would definitely have noticed it. However, she did not notice anything now. She had to admit that pregnancy made one dumb for 3 years. She held his hand and looked worried. But I am a bit worried about second brother. Although he didn't say anything, I can feel that he is very sad. In the past few years, she had spent time with Xiao and found that he was an optimistic and carefree person. She rarely saw him worry about anything, but she also rarely saw him care about anything. He was only interested in everything for a short period of time, and there were no girls around him. However, ever since Gong Suanxue appeared, he had changed completely. Although he was still the same person, he seemed to have become more persistent and lived a more vivid life. Xiao Su also thought of this and said calmly, as a man, there are some things that you have to learn to bear and accept by yourself. Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes at him. That's easy for you to say. If I had lied to you, used you, and abandoned you in the end, let's see if you would still say that. Xiao Su narrowed his eyes and pulled her into his arms. He said in a dangerous tone, don't you dare. Chu Qingyan jumped into his arms and was overjoyed. See, no one would be able to stand it. Chapter 16:12. The banquet began. The few of them gathered around a table, and good wine and delicacies were served one after another. These were all made by the chef after Chu Qingyan's description. Every dish was exquisite and novel, unheard of and unseen. For example, small cakes, chicken rolls, Buddha jumps over the wall, hamburgers, pizzas, and other modern Chinese and Western dishes. The wine was made by Chu Qingyan's own shop. When she left the Sichuan, she brought several pots with her. Now they were put to good use. The night sky was dotted with stars, the crescent moon hung high in the sky, the stove was burning, and the room was warm. Just like the saying, a beautiful scene on a good day was a pleasure to the heart. However, after today's incident, everyone present couldn't help but worry about Xiao. After all, he was deceived and provoked. It was a big blow. However, while everyone was worried about Xiao, he was as usual, laughing and joking, as if nothing had changed. Good wine. Xiao drank it in one gulp and poured himself another cup. Chu Qingyan watched him drink half a pot, and couldn't help but raise her brows. Second brother, are you drowning your sorrows with wine? Xiao was stunned, then smiled and showed his white teeth. How could that be? If not for the wine that imperial brother gave me last time, I wouldn't have coveted it for so long. These words didn't seem to be a lie. Chu Qingyan smiled gently. All right, seeing that you admire my wine so much, when we go back, I'll have someone send 30 pots to your residence. I'll also instruct them to send it to you as long as you want to drink it. Xiao's eyes lit up and he said sweetly, I knew that imperial sister-in-law is the best. If there's anything in the future, just say the word and this subject brother will be at your beck and call. Even if it means risking my life. It's just a few pots of wine. You're selling yourself like this. It's not worth it. Chu Qingyan saw that he was playing tricks and couldn't help but shake her head in amusement. I don't have any other requests. I just hope that you can be at ease and live happily every day. Xiao's hand, which was holding the wine jug, paused. Then he said casually, Sister-in-law, I know what you're thinking. I also know that you're concerned about me. It's okay. I'm fine. Anyway, it's not like I haven't been cheated before. I'll get used to it. As he spoke, he casually tossed the cup aside, then picked up the wine jug and poured it into his mouth, as if he was afraid that someone would snatch it from him. Chu Qingyan saw that Jiang Yi was the same as before, and there was nothing wrong with him. However, no one noticed the redness in Xiao's eyes. This grape wine was also the Emperor Emeritus and Father Chu's favorite. They were fighting over it. If it weren't for someone stopping them, the two of them would have started fighting again. Chu Machen's father drank in a hurry, and was soon drunk. Chu Machen's mother helped him leave the table. The retired emperor had no one to accompany him, so he was a little bored. When he saw his second grandson, he immediately ran over. Second brother, come, let's have a toast. Xiao didn't refuse any of them. Ethereal was already drunk with him, so Cheng Yanluo dragged him away by the ear. However, the person in front of him was his imperial grandfather, so it was a different story. Imperial grandfather, don't drink so much. It's not good to get drunk. The retired emperor glared at him. What? Are you looking down on your imperial grandfather? Back in the day, I didn't get drunk even after 1,000 cups. No one has ever been able to outdrink me. Xiao didn't want to tell him the truth, but it was because he used to be the ruler of a nation. Who would dare to outdo him? All right, I'll drink with you. Only then did the retired emperor pat his shoulder in satisfaction. He filled his cup with wine and said, Come, cheers. The two of them clinked their cups and downed the wine in one gulp. The retired emperor wiped the wine stains on his face, and his expression suddenly became serious. He patted his grandson's arm and said earnestly, Second brother, although you're not young anymore, and your imperial brother and third brother are married and have families, there's no need to be anxious. If your conditions are revealed, I guarantee that your doorstep will be trampled over, so there's no need to hang yourself on a crooked tree. Although that tree is growing quite well, there's plenty of other fish in the sea. What's yours will be yours sooner or later. Perhaps your fate hasn't arrived yet, so there's no need to be anxious. Xiao was stunned. The wine in his cup immediately overflowed. Seeing this, the retired emperor's heart ached and he snatched the wine jug away. Imperial grandfather, you're thinking too much. I'm not anxious at all. The retired emperor hugged the wine jug and looked at him in disbelief. Thinking too much? I think you're the one who's thinking too much. She's so cold that she doesn't even care about you. But you're trying so hard to get close to her. You're a disgrace to our imperial family. Xiao's expression changed slightly. Imperial grandfather, I don't have that kind of interest in her. The retired emperor gave a cold humph. You know very well whether you do or not. Xiao didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Imperial grandfather, do you think I'm sad right now? I don't think so. It's not like you don't know me. I've walked through a field of 10,000 flowers, but not a single leaf stains my body. To me, marriage and love aren't as important as a jug of wine. Hearing this, the Emperor Emeritus looked at him suspiciously. Really? You're not trying to fool grandfather? Really? Xiao Yao revealed an especially sincere expression. The retired emperor couldn't tell if it was true or false, so he simply didn't bother to distinguish. He once again said earnestly, "Grandson, imperial grandfather hopes that what you're saying is true, and not a forced smile. In order to comfort grandfather, you're deceiving yourself. In life, we pay attention to the word fate. Come if you're compatible, leave if you're incompatible. Your life is still long, so don't stop moving forward just because of a small encounter. Work hard to look forward. Perhaps the person you like, and the person who also likes you, is right in front of you." After saying this, leaving Xiao Yao in a daze, the retired emperor stealthily took the 2 jugs of wine behind him, and then slipped away. When Xiao Yao came back to his senses, the retired emperor was already nowhere to be seen. He held his forehead, shook his head and finally laughed. His laughter was 3 parts drunken and 7 parts bitter. He picked up the jug of wine and downed it. He didn't know how long he drank, but when he put down the empty jug in his hand, he was already staggering. He shook his head. His alcohol tolerance was really poor. Taking the remaining jug of wine, he staggered out of the courtyard and walked towards the courtyard where Gong Xuanxue used to live. Because of the wine, his usually clear eyes were very bright. He stood in the courtyard and didn't enter the house. He glanced at the furnishings around him, and finally leaped onto a tall tree in the courtyard. He leaned his shoulders against the tree trunk and sat on it. He raised his head and continued to drink. The more he drank, the brighter his eyes became, as if they were washed by water. He had drunk more than his usual limit tonight, but he didn't feel sleepy at all. He wiped his face, shook the empty jug in his hand, and shook his head with a self-deprecating smile. He put the empty jug aside and lay on the tree branch, looking at the bright moon in the sky. He remembered what the ice beauty had asked him today. "Xiao Yao, what do you want to do? If you're angry with me, don't take it out on others and make things difficult for them." How could he be angry with her? What right did he have to be angry with her? Didn't he ask for it himself? Even his imperial grandfather said that he was shameless enough to get close to her, so how could he blame anyone else? He raised his hand to cover his eyes, and silently curved his lips. "Don't say that a man's heart is as hard as iron. Don't you see the red leaves of a river full of tears?" Chapter 16:13. Time flew by like an arrow. 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. News from the front lines came one after another. Jean Xian had taken back all the cities of the Sun Clan, and chased the people of the Yue sect out. Now the Sun Flame sect had become the protector of the Sun Clan again. However, the Sun Clan and the Moon Clan were fighting as equals. Jean Xian still had many things to deal with, and would get busier. These news were all sent back by Turin. Chu Qingyan was relieved when she received the news. She believed in Jean Xian's ability. With the help of Turin, Sima, and Ji Linyang, he would definitely take back what belonged to him and return peace to the people. However, she was still worried. But now, she was completely relieved. However, she realized that the big ice cube was not as happy as she was after reading the news. She could not help but ask, "What's wrong? Is there a problem?" Xiao Su frowned slightly. The letter said that when there were only 2 cities left, the other party abandoned the cities without fighting. Chu Qingyan blinked. "I don't think there's a problem. Maybe the other party felt that they couldn't win and abandoned the cities. This is a victory without fighting. We didn't lose anything and took back the cities. Isn't that good?" Xiao Su felt that something was wrong, but he couldn't put his finger on it. He lowered his head and saw the baby's slightly bulging belly, so he put the matter aside for the time being. Anyway, Jinshin had already achieved his original goal, so the process wasn't important. He raised his hand to touch her lower abdomen and asked gently, "Did it bother you today?" Chu Qingyan's attention immediately turned to the baby in her belly. When she heard his question, she said sadly, "It was very noisy. I even threw up what I ate this morning." Xiao Su looked at the little one's face carefully. It was a little pale. He reached out and touched her face. He said tenderly, "When it's born, I will teach it a lesson." Then he said, "I'll get the kitchen to cook some millet porridge for you. Eat some." She reached out and hugged his waist. She leaned her head against his chest and nodded obediently. Ever since she got pregnant, other than being sleepy, she had been particularly clingy to him. She was even more clingy than their son was back then. Sometimes, she even wondered if she was being too pretentious. But if she thought about it from another perspective, perhaps the baby in her stomach wanted a father. Thinking of this, she felt relieved and became even more clingy. However, he was happy to see this change in the little fellow. He couldn't wait for her to be under his watch 24 hours a day. However, there was one thing that gave him a headache. Yen Luo said that pregnant women would definitely like strange things. However, the last time she was pregnant with Kong, the little guy's taste was still normal. But this time, it was a little strange. Recently, the little guy didn't like spicy food. Moreover, he often hugged sour plums to eat. This way of eating was simply too scary. However, he didn't listen to her. Every time he wanted to take away her dishes and change them to something lighter, she would look at him pitifully. When he wanted to take away her hidden snacks, such as sour plums and hawthorn, she would look at him pitifully again. She didn't need to say anything. As long as she pouted and looked at him with curved eyes, his heart would soften. In the end, he could only reduce the amount each time. People said that it was sour and spicy, but when it came to him, it didn't work. He couldn't tell whether his little fellow was pregnant with a boy or a girl. Xiao Su peeled a grape and brought it to her lips. She obediently opened her mouth and ate it. He continued to peel the next one calmly. In her eyes, it was as if he wasn't peeling grapes, but wiping his sword. Because his expression was very serious, so serious that it was fascinating. Big Ice Cube, do you think it's a boy or a girl? She lay in his arms and asked. It's good whether it's a boy or a girl. He peeled the grape seriously. Why? I thought you would want a girl. She spat out the grape seed and asked curiously. Xiao Su stopped what he was doing and looked at her with a faint smile in his eyes. As long as it's your child, it's good. But no matter if it was a boy or a girl, as long as it was the little fellow's child, he would like it. Chu Qingyan felt that this person was getting better and better at saying sweet nothings. She smiled shyly and hugged his waist. Big Ice Cube is the best. But if it's a boy, Kong will have someone to practice martial arts with in the future. If it's a girl, with Kong's protection, she will definitely live a carefree life. Xiao Su smiled slightly. That was natural. He would naturally arrange for their child to be together. A few days ago, I received a letter from Zijing. Only then did I know that she had given birth to a girl. If not for the fact that we are related by blood, I would really want to marry her off. Chu Qingyan rubbed her chin and said regretfully. Xiao Su's eyebrows twitched slightly. He didn't expect the little fellow to have such thoughts. Kong is still young. There's no rush. However, the person in his arms didn't listen to him. Her eyes suddenly lit up. Oh right, aren't Sima and young Master Ji already married? If they have a girl, let's make her Kong's wife in advance, okay? Looking at his wife's sparkling eyes, Xiao Su felt a little pressured. Their relationship should be mutual love. It's not very good to arrange a marriage before they are born. Chu Qingyan waved her hand and said disapprovingly. Look at how handsome Sima and young Master Ji are. The combination of beauty and handsomeness will definitely give birth to a child who will surpass the master. So the child will definitely be very cute and beautiful. Moreover, half of the child's IQ comes from its parents. Sima and young Master Ji are so smart, so the child won't be bad. In this way, won't it be a good match for Kong? She had already imagined a scene of a golden boy and a jade girl being childhood sweethearts. Xiao Su was very helpless against his wife's wild imagination. However, as long as his wife was happy, she could do whatever she wanted. He didn't object. Kong sneezed as he played. He was completely unaware that his parents had sold him. Jasper immediately went into the room to get a cloak for her little master, afraid that he would catch a cold again. It was rare that Chu Qingyan didn't feel sleepy after lunch, so Xiao Su took her to the courtyard for a walk. Oh right, what has Water Spirit been doing recently? It seems that we haven't heard from her for more than a month. Xiao Su supported her waist and said, let her help Jean Xian. She should be in the Yu clan's territory now. As soon as he said that, the two saw Hualing hurriedly run over. Master, young princess consort, water spirit is back. Water spirit is back. Chu Qingyan looked at the person beside her in confusion. Wasn't she in the Yu clan's territory now? Why did she come back? Xiao was also puzzled. He asked Hualing, where is she now? In the main hall. Hualing's expression was a bit anxious. Master, you didn't see how water spirit looked when she came back. She looked like she had lost her soul. After so many years, I've never seen her in such a sorry state. Chu Qingyan and Xiao looked at each other and walked towards the main hall without another word. Chapter 16-14. Xiao and Chu Qingyan rushed to the main hall and saw water spirit standing there, as if she had lost all her luster. She didn't seem to have a soul, just like an empty shell. She didn't even notice that they had entered. They had never seen water spirit like this before. Chu Qingyan quickly walked over and reached out to hold water spirit's hand. She looked at her lifeless eyes with heartache. Water spirit, what happened? Tell us, your master and I will make a decision for you. At this time, water spirit finally sensed their arrival. She looked at Chu Qingyan in a daze and then reached out to hug her, crying out, little princess consort, woo woo. The tears that she had been holding back the entire way finally came out at this moment. Water spirit cried her heart out, as if she wanted to cry out all the pain she had suffered for the past 10 years. No one knew what happened to her, but just hearing her voice, they couldn't help being moved. Chu Qingyan was tightly hugged by her, as if she was a piece of driftwood. She couldn't help reaching out to hug her back, gently patting her back as she softly said, don't be afraid, cry all you want. We're all here. We won't let you be bullied. Little princess consort, he's not dead, he's not dead. Woo woo, it's been 10 years, it's been 10 years. She kept mumbling incoherently. Chu Qingyan was the closest to her, and when she heard what she said clearly, she felt the person in her arms go limp and fall to the ground. She hurriedly supported her. Someone, ethereal, heard that water spirit had fainted and immediately rushed over. She took her pulse and thought that she was seriously injured, but the result was, she fainted because of excessive exhaustion and emotional fluctuations. After listening to Kong Ling's diagnosis, everyone looked at each other. According to Shui Ling's temperament, it was impossible for her to cry until she fainted. What was going on here? Just now, her subordinates said that she hasn't rested for 3 days and 3 nights. Hua Ling came back from downstairs and told everyone about this. Ever since Feng Ling passed away, we haven't seen water spirit act so abnormally. Ethereal looked at water spirit on the bed and gave a faint sigh. Once Feng Ling was mentioned, Xiao Laiqi and the others fell silent. Feng Ling's death had always been a scar in their hearts that was hard to erase. Chu Qingyan at this time, she suddenly remembered what water spirit had said when she hugged her and cried. She kept mumbling, he's not dead, it's been 10 years. Feng Ling zest. Did she say he wasn't dead? But we still haven't found his corpse. Hua Ling immediately added. The two looked at each other before looking at their master who had been silent the entire time. Xiao Su's eyes were heavy. We'll know when water spirit wakes up. Everyone was dejected. It was useless for them to make wild guesses here. Water spirit did not sleep well. Her brows were furrowed as she muttered. In the end, she shouted something and woke up. Everyone wanted to let her rest first and prepare to leave, but because of her shout, they pulled back their feet. Shui Ling, what's going on? Shui Ling was still sitting on her bed in a state of shock when she suddenly heard a reassuring voice. Turning her head to look at her master, little princess, and all her companions who were all worried about her, she couldn't help bursting into tears again, but this time she was happy. Master, Feng Ling isn't dead. He's in North Korea. These words were like a bomb that caught everyone off guard. After a while, water spirit changed her clothes and reappeared in front of everyone. Xiao Su sat at the head of the table and asked calmly, tell me about this matter. Shui Ling nodded. After more than half an hour of rest, her complexion had improved a lot and was no longer as pale as before. A month ago, this subordinate accompanied Jean Xian to the Yu clan to investigate. However, in a small alley, this subordinate saw an old beggar with a string of wind chimes in his hand. As she spoke, she pulled out a string of wind chimes from her sleeve. They had been rubbed so hard that they had almost lost their color. Her eyes were filled with tears, but she forced them to not fall. This looks like an ordinary wind chime. What does it have to do with Fengling? Cheng Yanluo looked at the string of wind chimes seriously, and asked in confusion. Meanwhile, Ethereal seemed to have thought of something. I remember that Fengling used to like making small things like this for you. Could this be? Upon hearing this, Water Spirit's eyes reddened even more. Yes, this was made by Fengling. This string of wind chimes was a token of our love back then. It was also consecrated at the temple to ensure our safety. There used to be a pair, but he broke them while on a mission. Before the battle at Xiao Slope, I gave him mine. His original one had the word water. Mine had the word wind, and she flipped open the bell at the bottom and showed it to everyone. And this Fengling has the word wind below it. Needless to say, this wind chime was the one that Fengling had with him back then. Everyone was delighted. Could it be that Fengling is really still alive? Water Spirit nodded. I thought so too, but, however, no one knew how this string of wind chimes had traveled from Sichuan to North Korea, which was so far away. Xiaosu suddenly spoke. What did you find out from that old beggar? Water Spirit fell silent, her expression very disappointed. Nothing. The old beggar said that he picked it up in the capital, but the wind chimes were covered in blood. However, it had already dried up. He spent a lot of effort to wash it off. He originally wanted to pawn it, but no pawnshop was willing to accept it, so he kept it with him. Then what did you do in this month? Xiaosu continued. Water Spirit continued to shake her head. I searched for a month, but I didn't find any news. Because of her words, everyone's surprise from just now instantly cooled down. This string of wind chimes did not mean that the wind spirit was still alive. It was also possible that the people of North Korea had picked it up when they passed by Sishui Slope and brought it here. If Fengling was still alive, he would definitely think of a way to come back, and not spend 10 years like this. However, back then, Fengling had died without a corpse. This made Hualing and the others feel a bit lucky. Hualing could not help but take a step forward and ask, Master, do you think Fengling is still alive? Xiaosu furrowed his brows, obviously thinking about this matter. At this time, Water Spirit suddenly knelt down. She raised her head and her eyes were filled with tears. Her originally small face had become even smaller because of this month's hard work. Her pleading eyes were filled with tears, making her look even more pitiful. She placed her hands on the ground and kowtowed as she pleaded. Master, Fengling must still be alive. Let's go find him, all right? After all these years, who knows how much he has suffered? Let's go find him and bring him back. I beg you. Chapter 16:15. Water Spirit cried until her shoulders trembled, but she still kowtowed again and again. For so many years, she thought day and night, thinking that she could only see Huang Quan again. But the heavens pitied her and gave her a glimmer of hope. Even if she had to sacrifice her life, she was not willing to give up. Chu Qingyan looked at the peerless beauty, who was crying like rain, and could not help but feel sad. If Fengling was still alive, that would be great. But if Fengling was still alive, then in these 10 years he had not contacted Xiao Lai Mount. There were only a few possibilities. For example, he had lost his memory, or he was being held hostage. In other words, he was not free. Because she believed that a person nurtured by Big Ice Cube would not do such a foolish thing. But if this was just drawing water with a bamboo basket, then what would Water Spirit do? The most tragic thing in the world was nothing more than giving people hope when they were in despair, letting them experience the heart-wrenching despair once again. At this time, Xiaosu stood up and walked in front of Water Spirit. He bent down and helped her up, sighing softly. Fengling is the most outstanding Mount Master that I have nurtured. That year when he died Xiao Slope with blood, it has always been a knot in my heart. Now that there is news of him, how can I just sit and wait for death? Water Spirit looked up in a daze. Master means, thoroughly investigate what happened that year. Regardless of whether Fengling is dead or alive, I will give you an answer. Xiaosu retracted his hand, his eyes filled with relief. Water Spirit nodded heavily, her voice hoarse with gratitude. Thank you, Master. Ethereal and Hualing also knelt down in surprise. Thank you, Master. Chu Qingyan walked in front of Water Spirit, took up a handkerchief and helped her wipe her tears, comforting her. Don't worry, your master wants to find Feng Ling more than you, so go and have a good rest first. If you don't eat and sleep well, how can you have the strength? After you recharge your energy, we will go with you to find him. Water Spirit could not help but hug her again. Thank you, little princess. Chu Qingyan stroked her back, her heart aching. Poor girl. After Water Spirit was helped down to rest, there were only Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su left. Chu Qingyan walked over and held Big Ice Cube's hand. Looking up, she was not surprised to see the sorrow in his eyes. Big Ice Cube, what happened at Ci Shui Slope that year was not your fault. Who would have thought that they would be so cruel? She didn't forget the desolation and loneliness she felt when he faced those tombstones with his back to her before he left for war. Those were the subordinates he had personally trained, the brothers who had been through wind and fire with him. So many years had passed, but the Big Ice Cube still seemed to be carrying shackles on his back as he moved forward with a heavy burden. It could be seen how important Feng Ling and the others were to the Ice Cube. She was Big Ice Cube. If a person made a mistake, they could be punished according to the law and be imprisoned for a certain period of time. But for Big Ice Cube, he had already condemned himself in his heart. No matter what he did, he could not atone for his crime, because he had sentenced himself to life imprisonment. The guilt he felt towards Wind Spirit and Water Spirit. These were the pain that Big Ice Cube could not express to anyone. Xiao Su held her hand tightly, his voice uncertain. And we will find Wind Spirit, right? Chu Qingyan could not help but hug him from behind, trying to make her voice not sound so sad. Big Ice Cube, it's okay. If Wind Spirit is still alive, we will definitely find him. Wind Spirit, if you are still alive, give us some news so that we can find you as soon as possible. This way, Water Spirit would truly be happy, and Big Ice Cube would truly be able to let go of the chains in his heart. She hugged him tightly, wanting to pass her warmth to him. Xiao Su put his hands on the back of her hands and slowly closed his eyes. In a palace of the Moon Clan, Gongsun Shui held the latest information in her hands. Sect Master, according to your orders, we put the evidence of the transaction with Flowing Cloud Pavilion in front of Elder Su, forcing him to reveal himself. As you expected, Elder Su betrayed us by supporting Gongsun Fei. Qing Yu's eyes shone with a golden light. Lan Si, who was standing at the side, harumphed heavily. This Su Yu is really a traitor. The old sect master treated him well, and even let him marry his daughter to King Cheng. Since King Cheng died of illness, the old sect master was worried that Gongsun Fei would be bullied without him, so he put her by his side to cultivate. Who would have thought that these two ingrates would be so greedy as to collude with each other and attempt to usurp the throne? This is simply intolerable. High Priestess, don't be angry. It is not worth it to get angry over these ingrates. Qiu Tong hurriedly rubbed the High Priestess's shoulders to calm her down. Qiu Feng also advised from the side. Yes, High Priestess, the sect master already had a card up his sleeve to deal with these people. Otherwise, he would not have forced them to reveal their fox's tail. Now that they are desperate and have troops to protect themselves, although they have occupied half of the cities, they have shown their true colors. The people will no longer be deceived by them. Only then did Lan Si smile. He patted the children in front of him and was very gratified. Then he turned to look at the silent Gongsun Shui and asked with confusion in his eyes, Sect Master, what do you think now? He had single-handedly raised this child. He knew how intelligent and determined she was, and how much pain and suffering she had gone through. However, after she had taken over the position of sect master, he had let her do as she pleased. He had not interfered much, and had gone into seclusion. As a result, he was not very clear about what she was thinking and what she was planning to do. Gongsun Shui moved her shoulders and turned to look at the few pairs of sparkling eyes. Her eyes darkened and she said to Lan Si, High Priestess, since my father's death, the position of sect master has been empty for nearly 10 years. It has always been Su Yu who has monopolized it. Although you fought against him and preserved some power for me, when I took over the position of sect master, Although I suppressed his power and made him restrain himself in these few years, he has secretly cultivated elite secret guards and courtiers. From this rebellion, it can be seen that the speed at which he took over half of the cities is astonishing. He took most of his men and left the capital to be on the same side as us, leaving many positions empty in the court. This is the problem he has left for us. He wants to see us make a fool of ourselves and whether we will panic because of his absence. However, it is not as if I have not done anything since I took over. I have also gathered a group of talents, one radish and one pit. I want to nurture these talents to fill these positions so that the court can operate normally. Gong Sun Shue's words made Lan Si heave a big sigh of relief. A smile appeared on his lips. This old man knew that you would not disappoint. Gong Sun Shue smiled faintly, but her expression quickly returned to seriousness. But we still cannot let down our guard. So many people have left at once. This is a serious blow to the Yu clan. Therefore, during this period of time, we must raise our attention to deal with whatever may happen next. Chapter 16:16. Gong Xuanxue's words made everyone stop laughing. This was just the beginning. The real battle had yet to come. Everyone left immediately after receiving the order. Only Gong Xuanxue and Lan Si were left in the meeting room. It was a little empty. Girl, do you have other thoughts? When no one else was around, the high priest would call her girl. It was as if she had returned to her childhood. She did not deny it, but she did not answer the high priest's question immediately. Instead, she talked about something else. High priest, have you been happy these years? This completely unrelated question stunned Lan Si. The child in front of him had always had a firm heart, and only cared about the matters of the clan. According to his original temperament, it was impossible for him to ask such a sentimental question, but he still answered after serious consideration. As the high priest, I have the responsibility of protecting the clan. I have lived up to this position all these years. My heart is at ease. Gong Xuanxue shook her head. I asked if you were happy, and your answer was at ease. This answer is reasonable, but I don't think you have ever been happy. Lan Si looked at her. Girl, what about you? Gong Xuanxue laughed self-deprecatingly. Your answer is the same as mine. They lived to dedicate their lives to the clan. They wanted peace and a clear conscience. That was the greater good. She slowly walked to the window. The cold wind blew on her face, just like her mood at the moment. Since I was young, everyone told me that my mission was to grow up and become stronger. Then I would take over the position of the Lord. I would work hard, love the people and benefit the country. They said it over and over again. I believed them and engraved them in my mind. I dare not forget. For so many years, I have been working hard. I kept absorbing knowledge. I learned how to kill, how to scheme, and how to become cold-blooded. Because people in high positions cannot be soft-hearted. Once soft-hearted, they will be doomed. But recently, I suddenly realized that I am not happy at all. Or I don't even know what happiness is. Girl. Lan Si took a step forward. His turbid eyes were full of pity. For more than 10 years he had never heard her speak so much, and the contents of her words were so heartbreaking. Everyone has their own destiny in this world. Everyone has a different mission. Just like you are destined to be the master of a sect, the leader of a country. This is something that cannot be changed. This old man loves you dearly, but I cannot change anything. Gong Sun Shue's eyes dimmed. Yes, because the mission on my shoulders is different, I have to bear it all. Child, you've suffered. Lan Si moved her lips. In the end, all the comforting words were left with this sentence. No matter how much she said, it couldn't cover up her frailty. However, when Gong Xuanxue turned around, the sadness in her eyes had been replaced by a faint light. High Priest, I'm not saying all this to complain to you, nor am I complaining about the unfairness of the heavenly Tao. Everyone has their own fate. This is destined and cannot be changed. I won't resist either. But now, I feel that this is an opportunity to change the situation in North Korea. We have to seize it well, and not let it slip by. Lan Si was relieved that the person in front of him had regained her vitality. He had not misjudged this child. Even if she encountered setbacks, she would not wallow in sorrow and would continue to move forward. All right, speak. This old man is listening. Gong Sun Shui walked to the desk and dipped the brush in ink. Then, she drew a circle on the side of the map. This is the territory of the Japanese. It is currently in Morong Yunshuan's hands. This is the half of the moon's territory that Su Yu and Gong Sun Fei have occupied. Wait, most of the territory that they have occupied is actually close to the Japanese. Lan Si had only discovered this when he looked at the area that Gong Sun Shui had drawn. His tone was full of surprise. Gong Sun Shui revealed a meaningful smile. That's right, I arranged it on purpose. Su Yu's little tricks had aroused her vigilance. Gong Sun Fei had arrogantly provoked her, and did not know how to hide her ambitions. Thus she had sent people to investigate them. This was how she had discovered that Su Yu was using his position to plant his people. Thus she had deliberately transferred all the officials in the cities close to the Japanese. Su Yu had thought that this was a good opportunity and immediately stuffed his people there. Thus he had moved his stronghold to that side. Lan Si was surprised. Girl, why did you do this? Could it be that you had already predicted that Morong Yunxian would reclaim all the Japanese territory? Then you wanted to use Su Yu and Gong Sun Fei to block the way, and borrow Morong Yunshuan's hand to destroy them? But that was not right. If Morong Yunxian defeated Su Yu and the others, wouldn't that be the same as giving half of the country to Morong Yunxian? Lan Si couldn't quite understand her actions. She had already thought of the high priest's doubts. She withdrew her pen and stood straight, facing him. Her expression was calm as she said, High priest, how has the Yu clan been doing these years? Lan Si pondered for a moment. There are many factions competing. Although the other factions are not doing well, Su Yu's faction is not to be underestimated. If we do not control it well at this time, the other factions are likely to use this opportunity to strengthen themselves. We cannot tolerate this. Gong Sun Shui asked again. Then what about the people under our rule? Lan Si revealed a difficult expression. For so many years, this old one has focused on teaching you and handling the affairs of the clan. I do not know much about the affairs of the people. Gong Sun Shui smiled. High priest, this question, I will answer for you. Since my father's death, the lives of the Yu clan's people have not been stable. Even our clan is living like this, let alone the Japanese. Back then, Su Yu plotted against the Japanese. Our army entered the Japanese territory and defeated the Sunflame sect. However, we took over the territory, but did not give the Japanese people a good life. I was in the Yu clan, so I did not know how the officials I sent out were managed. In addition, there were many restrictions and hidden secrets. I thought that the Sun and Yu clans were living happily. At this point, Gong Sun Shui's eyes suddenly became sharp and cold. The truth is that the people we sent out did not manage the Japanese properly. Instead, they increased taxes without permission, oppressed the people, and committed crimes. They did not treat the people as human beings at all. This caused the people to have no way to make a living, and grief is everywhere. If I had not come incognito this time, I would still be in the dark. Lan Si never expected this. His hands trembled, and his eyes were filled with shock. This. High priest, isn't our responsibility to let the people live a happy and prosperous life? However, after so many years, it is now contrary to our beliefs. Are we just going to sit here and wait for death? Gong Sun Shui's words made Lan Si completely speechless. This child said so much just to persuade him for the next plan. He could not help but take a deep breath and prepare to resist the storm. Then what is your plan? Chapter 16-17. He had been waiting for the high priestess to say this. Gong Sun Shui picked up the brush again, and drew a circle around the entire map. Then, she put it down and said firmly, there can be no construction without destruction. At first, Lan Si did not understand what she meant. However, when his gaze fell on the circled map of North Korea, he suddenly understood and became excited. Girl, are you planning to truly unify North Korea? Gong Sun Shui smiled faintly and nodded. She put down the brush in her hand, and stood with her hands behind her back. Her expression was somewhat hopeful. North Korea was originally one country, but it was divided into two because of the conflict between the Sun Clan and the Moon Clan. Now there are 3 factions. Once all 3 factions are united, we will truly go to war and unify North Korea. This will be much faster than us gathering them bit by bit. Lan Si was overjoyed. I've always thought that you were promising. If you can conquer the 2 clans this time and secure your position as sect master, then even if I die, I will be able to face your father calmly. Gong Suanshue was not as excited as the high priestess. A complicated expression appeared on her face. She thought of many things, and in the end, a faint bitterness appeared at the corner of her lips. Girl, why aren't you saying anything? Lan Si had been happy for a long time, but when he saw her standing there in a daze without saying a word, he could not help but feel strange. Gong Suanshue looked up and smiled. High priestess, you've forgotten that I don't have long to live. Only then did Lan Si remember that this girl had an illness from her mother's womb. His joy from before was diluted and his expression turned solemn. You little girl, what are you saying? This old man has already found several famous doctors for you. If these people can't cure you, we'll find more. This old man doesn't believe that no one can cure this illness. Gong Suanshue looked deeply at the old man in front of her, and her eyes became slightly moist. High priestess, we can't lie to ourselves. If we could find someone, we wouldn't have searched for more than 10 years. Now we have to prepare for the worst. As she spoke, she hid the emotions in her eyes and regained her usual calmness. Her voice was filled with determination. The country will definitely be unified, but we must choose a successor. I will handle this matter. High priestess, please help me take care of the frontline matters. Girl, you. Lan Si didn't expect that she would actually make arrangements for her funeral. He looked at the child he had watched grow up and sighed. Now that things had come to this, they had to see the truth and not blindly deceive themselves. This old man understands. I will do my best to help you. Thank you, High Priest. Gong Suanshue smiled as she watched the High Priest walk away. When she was the only one left in the hall, she reached out and caressed the map of North Korea. She traced the territory with her finger and smiled. If the High Priest knew about her plan, he would think that she was crazy. However, there was no turning back for her. She retracted her hand and looked into the dark night. And that man who streaked across her life like a shooting star was probably the brightest color in her life. 3 days later, Water Spirit was recuperating, but she didn't neglect any of the work at hand. While she was here, the pigeon feather she had left at the Yu clan kept sending her information. Everyone knew that there was no point in being anxious. So other than Shui Ling losing her composure that day, she had been very calm every day, neither arrogant nor impatient. Seeing this, Chu Qingyan felt both heartache and gratification. Love was the greatest motivation that supported a person's life. On this day, the Xiao residents received 2 extremely important letters. Chu Qingyan opened the letter sent by Jin Xian. After reading it carefully, her brows relaxed. She said to everyone, Jin Xian says that he has found the culprit behind the Murong clan's tragedy. In half a month, he will lead the army and demand an explanation from the Yu clan. Although he wanted an explanation, everyone knew that the war between the Sun and Yu clan was unavoidable. The retired emperor clapped his hands happily and praised. This kid didn't disappoint us. He settled the internal affairs so quickly and is ready to take revenge. Congratulations. Everyone agreed. At this time, Water Spirit also opened the letter sent by the pigeon feather. However, everyone noticed that her fingers were trembling slightly, as if she was trying her best to control something. Hualing couldn't help but ask worriedly, Water Spirit, don't scare us. What did the letter say? Water Spirit sniffed. Her eyes were red, but the smile on her face revealed her emotions. The pigeon feather sent news that someone saw Fengling appear in the Yu clan's capital half a year ago. Really? Everyone was a little excited. They had searched high and low for him, only to find him without any effort. After the excitement, everyone calmed down. Chu Qingyan thought of something and asked, did he say what he was doing in the capital? The letter didn't say. Water Spirit calmed down after being happy. If he was free, he wouldn't have stayed there. He would have joined us as soon as possible. At this point, Water Spirit immediately turned to the person on the main seat. Master, this subordinate was worried that Feng Ling was being controlled by someone, so he couldn't leave. Xiao Su's eyes turned cold. It seems like we have to make a trip there ourselves. When he said this, everyone was happy and went to make preparations. Soon only the husband and wife were left. Chu Qingyan sensed the big ice cube's gaze and looked back at him coldly. If you want me to stay, go find Feng Ling yourself. Don't even think about it. Not only is there no door, there's no window either. Xiao Su chuckled when he heard this. He raised his hand to pinch her angry cheeks and said amusedly, I haven't even said anything, but you already know. Don't think that I don't know what you're planning. Anyway, I'll say it right here. If you dare to leave me alone, then don't come back. When the child is born, you don't have to see him either. Be prepared to have no family, no wife, and no child. Chu Qingyan angrily slapped his hand away, looking like he had no right to touch her now. Xiao Su didn't know whether to laugh or cry at her rebuke, but looking at her appearance, she was capable of doing it. Mia, I'm practically in your clutches. Xiao Su reached out and scooped her up. Although she was already 3 to 4 months pregnant, her body was still too small and too light. Chu Qingyan was afraid of hurting the child, so she didn't struggle and allowed him to carry her on his lap. Her fingers grabbed his lapel and threatened fiercely. If you dare to abandon the family and the child today, I'll run away with the child and marry again. Just as she finished speaking, she felt the hand around her waist tighten. She was forced to look up, and before she could see clearly, his lips pressed down. Their lips intertwined, attacking and conquering with a hint of punishment, causing her to lose her ground inch by inch. He only let her go when she was out of breath. He scooped her body into his embrace and coldly said, Don't think of leaving me and marrying again. From now on, you must not leave my side. You're not allowed to bargain. Chu Qingyan was still in a daze. Did she persuade the big ice cube, or was she threatened by the big ice cube? Chapter 16-18. The trip to the Yu clan was set for 3 days later, but no one knew about it yet. Only Xiao Laiqi and the retired emperor knew. On this day, Xiao Su found Xiao Yao in Gongsun Shui's courtyard. Imperial brother, are you here to persuade me too? Don't worry, I'm not that weak. I just can't find a place to rest. I like this tree, so I came here. Do I look like someone trapped by love? So don't waste your time on me. It's more important to spend time with sister-in-law. Xiao Yao leaned against the tree trunk and lowered his head to look at the people under the tree. He had a smile on his face that was brighter than the sun, but there was some distress in his eyes. It was as if he couldn't understand why everyone had been so careful to protect him, as if he was a fragile jade. For example, his imperial brother in front of him. Xiao Su stood motionless and looked back at his younger brother with indifferent eyes. If he didn't forget, his younger brother was best at disguise. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to avoid his imperial father's probing and Consort used trap every time. I haven't exercised in a long time. Let's fight. When his imperial brother said this, Xiao Yao was stunned. Fighting with his imperial brother. Wasn't he looking for death? Imperial brother, the weather is clear and the wind is gentle. Don't you think it's a good time to go out with sister-in-law? Xiao Yao immediately used his sister-in-law as a shield. But today, no matter who he used, it was useless. Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. Come down. Xiao Yao saw that his imperial brother looked like he was going to chop the tree if he didn't come down. So he immediately rolled down. Imperial brother, I'm just a flowery martial artist, just. Before he could finish, he had already attacked. He couldn't retreat and could only brace himself to receive the attack. It had only been 10 moves, and Xiao Yao had already been punched twice. He said with a sad face, Imperial brother, show me your true skills. Xiao Su said mercilessly. Xiao Yao wanted to cry. There was no doubt about his imperial brother's martial arts. How could he dare to show off in front of Master Guan? However, his imperial brother had already spoken, so he couldn't avoid it no matter what. He could only use all of his strength to counter every move that came his way, so that he wouldn't be beaten too badly. However, an hour later, Xiao Yao appeared in the meeting hall with a swollen face. He complained tearfully to Chu Qingyan, who was applying medicine for him. Imperial sister-in-law, Imperial brother bullies the weak. Look, 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 he slapped my handsome face until it's swollen. We've already agreed that when hitting someone, don't hit their face. Oh, my reputation. Chu Qingyan really wanted to squeeze out a few words to comfort Xiao Yao, but seeing him like this, she couldn't help but laugh. When Xiao Yao saw her convulsing with laughter, he couldn't help but lean against the chair and close his eyes, pretending to be dead. They were all jackals of the same tribe. Xiao Su sipped his tea. Seeing him like this, he couldn't help but mock. Useless. He didn't know if she was saying that his martial arts were useless, or that he had been forcing himself to smile for the past few days. When Xiao Yao heard this, he immediately didn't dare to make a sound. Laura. Xiao Yao, whose face had just been smeared with the colorful ointment, shuddered. Imperial brother called him with such an unfriendly tone. Was he going to fight again? However, all of this only came from his imagination. Xiao Su's tone was very normal. In 3 days, we will leave for the Yu clan. If you don't want to come with us, you can stay. This time, Xiao Yao didn't pretend to be dead. He suddenly raised his head. Imperial brother. Xiao Su ignored his gaze and continued. Jin Xian has already conquered the Sun clan. Now that there is internal strife in the Yu clan, before this month, Jin Xian will prepare to attack the Yu clan. After saying this, Xiao Su stood up and prepared to leave. Xiao Yao jumped up like a carp. Ignoring the injuries on his body, he immediately jumped in front of him. Imperial brother, internal strife in the Yu clan? Then Miss Gongsun. The moment he said this, he revealed the emotions he wanted to hide. However, at this time he couldn't care less. Xiao Su wasn't surprised by his reaction. He glanced at him indifferently. Didn't you say that Gongsun Shue's matters have nothing to do with you? Imperial brother. Xiao Yao flew into a rage out of humiliation. He was anxious and didn't care about his tone. During this period of time, he pretended that he didn't care about anything. He even avoided talking about the Sun Moon clan. As a result, he didn't know what was going on outside. Xiao Su looked at his panda eyes and shook his head. He said, "What do you want to know? Go and find the fire spirit." After saying this, he took the little fellow and walked out the door. After a few steps, a gust of wind blew past them. Chu Qingyan watched the green-robed figure disappear into the small path and sighed softly. There were 3 things in this world that couldn't be hidden: cough, poverty, and love. The more one tried to hide something, the more obvious it would be. How could Xiao Yao's feelings for Gongsun Shui be covered up just because he didn't say anything? The sadness he showed when there was no one around. The avoidance when he heard people talking about Gongsun Shui. The loneliness when he saw the things that Gongsun Shui left behind. He didn't know where his feelings came from, but he was already deeply in love. She shook their intertwined hands. The person beside her retracted his gaze and turned to her with a questioning look. Look at how he's been holding it in for so long, so you came up with the idea of fighting to let him vent his frustrations. Why didn't you tell him? Although she already knew the answer in her heart, she still wanted to hear what he had to say. Husband and wife didn't have to talk just because their hearts were connected. Wouldn't that mean that they had nothing to say to each other? Xiao Su smiled softly. I couldn't stand it. The men of the Xiao family aren't so weak. If they like something, they like it. If they let it go, they let it go. They never lie to themselves. Furthermore, his acting was too clumsy. I just wanted to beat him up to vent my anger. I'm not as noble as you think. Big Ice Cube was getting better and better at lying through his teeth. It wasn't that Xiao Yao's acting was too clumsy, but that his eyes were too sharp. He was obviously doing it for Xiao Yao's sake, but he didn't want to say it out loud. People always left a soft spot in their hearts for their loved ones, but they were always tough on the surface. People couldn't help but fear them. The way they expressed their concern was also different from others. However, those who truly treated them as family would understand. Big Ice Cube, fortunately there aren't too many obstacles between us. She hugged his arm and rejoiced. Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. What do you mean? You see, Ethereal and Yanluo have been enemies for years. Third brother and Jijing have been separated for 3 years after falling off the cliff. Second brother and Gongsun Shui are separated by the Sun clan and the Moon clan. It's like Romeo and Juliet. Family feud. Xiao didn't think much of it. Second brother has nothing to do with the Sun clan and the Moon clan. He's free to marry. Chu Qingyan suddenly understood. Big Ice Cube, you're right. Speaking of which, he felt that there were no obstacles between him and the little girl. Then, wouldn't the 5 years when she grew up be an obstacle? He stroked her head. Fortunately, all the misfortunes were over. No matter how many obstacles they had to overcome, they had already crossed over. Chapter 16-19. After learning about the situation between the Sun clan and the Moon clan from Hualing, Xiao returned to Gong Xuanxue's courtyard in a daze. He had pretended not to care about anything these days, so he had missed out on so much news. Now that the Moon clan was facing internal strife and foreign enemies, she must be in a terrible fix right now. Even though she and Jean Xian were enemies, at this moment, he really wanted to stay by her side. She was a person who wouldn't even cry out in pain. No matter how anxious or uncomfortable she was, she wouldn't tell anyone. She would just silently endure it. The thoughts that he had been suppressing these days erupted like a spring in this moment. These days he didn't think about her, but her every frown, every smile, and every action followed him like a shadow. He stood under the tree and reached out to touch the mottled tree bark. Only when the thin branches dug into his fingertips did he come back to his senses. He was angry at her, but he wasn't angry at her identity. He was angry at her for not trusting him and for using him. Xiao was a prince. No matter how carefree he usually was, he was still proud. Moreover, he had been deceived and used before. This had become his bottom line, his reverse scale. After learning the truth that day, how could he allow himself to act like nothing had happened and interact with her like normal? So he forced himself. No matter if he liked her or not, he had to forget her. He had to give up this memory. However, when he learned that she was in a dilemma and could face the dangers of war at any time, he couldn't lie to himself anymore. So he had already fallen this deep. Ever since the truth had been revealed, he had never thought about it from her position. If he was in her position, he probably wouldn't have done any better than her. What she did was actually pardonable. Since he cared about it, then there was no need to deny it. Could it be that he really had to wait until everything was irreparable before he regretted it? This wasn't his, Xiao's, style of doing things. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but take back his hand. The disappointment on his face disappeared. His thin lips hooked up and he revealed a determined smile. He thought that once he passed, he would once again be the carefree and unrestrained king of freedom. He immediately made a decision and walked towards his royal brother's courtyard. He wanted to go to the Moon clan. This was Xiao. Although in the eyes of outsiders, his actions were eccentric, he lived a carefree life. He did things according to his heart, did not care about what others thought of him, and never left behind any regrets. Chu Qingyan found time to find Dongting because there were still 2 days to go. Where's Tao Tao? Seeing that he was sitting alone in the courtyard, Chu Qingyan couldn't help but look around. Higashio Motetsu stretched lazily and interrupted her. Don't bother looking for her. She went out to buy something. Then why didn't you go with her? Higashio Motetsu stopped stretching and said with an unnatural expression. Why should this young master go with her? I'm not her servant. Oh. Chu Qingyan dragged the last syllable, making him feel uncomfortable. She then continued with a secret smile. Then usually when you go out, she doesn't leave or abandon you. It's not very good for you to be so heartless, right? The words doesn't leave or abandon you, and the sudden label of heartless made Higashio Motetsu almost choke on his saliva. He glared at her angrily. No way, I realized that you've been with Xiao for a long time. Instead of learning the good, you've learned the bad. You won't stop until you're shocked to death. Chu Qingyan shrugged. I'd rather you praise me for being eloquent. Higashio Motetsu made a tisk sound and continued to enjoy the sun. Chu Qingyan spread her hands and sat down on a bench with Jasper's help. The breeze was gentle and the sun was bright. It was really a good day. Dongting, you should have heard the news that we're going to the Yu clan, right? Chu Qingyan raised her hand and made a small tent in front of her forehead. She looked at the flock of geese flying in the distance without blinking, and casually mentioned this matter. Higashio Motetsu yawned and also casually replied, I know. Let me know before we set off. This young master can't guarantee that I won't oversleep. Chu Qingyan smiled and retracted her hand to look at him. What I mean is, you and Tao Tao shouldn't go this time. Why? Higashio Motetsu instantly narrowed his eyes and propped himself up to look at her. Chu Qingyan revealed an innocent expression and said sincerely, The Yu clan's civil war is fierce. This trip will be dangerous. I don't want you and Tao Tao to be involved in these disputes. After all, this has nothing to do with you. So you two can stay here or go somewhere else to play. Don't go near the Yu clan's territory for the time being. She heard him snort coldly and reject her suggestion without thinking. What are friends for? Isn't it to enjoy blessings and endure hardships together? It's impossible for me to back off at a time like this. Moreover, aren't you the one who should be avoiding? Why are you, a pregnant woman, joining in the fun? Didn't Xiao stop you? What's all this about? Seeing him jump to his feet and criticize her, Chu Qingyan pursed her lips. I was the one who wanted to go, and he agreed. But I really don't want you to get involved. Dongting, take Tao Tao back to the Sichuan. Higashio Motetsu gritted his teeth. In your dreams. Dongting, I am serious. Chu Qingyan tried her best to persuade him. Higashio Motetsu suddenly changed his attitude. He crossed his legs and lay back on the rocking chair with a devilish smile on his face. My legs are on my body. I can go wherever I want. You can't control me. Seeing this shameless person, Chu Qingyan sighed deeply. If she had known this would happen, she wouldn't have come to persuade this guy. She would have left it to Big Ice Cube to handle. After Chu Qingyan left, Higashio Motetsu straightened his body and rubbed his chin. Since he had decided to go to the Yu clan, he had to give Tao Tao some instructions. Speak of the devil. Look at what I bought back. Tao Tao waved the things in her hands at him. Higashio Motetsu's gaze swept over when he heard this. He saw that she was holding a bouquet of flowers in both hands. There was more than one variety on it, and it was colorful. In this cold season, it was very eye-catching. Didn't you go to buy accessories? How did it become flowers? Higashio Motetsu raised his eyebrows. These flowers are beautiful. And they're not real flowers. I saw someone making handicrafts, so I made this bouquet and put it in your room. You can see it every day. It won't wither, and you don't need to change the water. I'm very smart, aren't I? Tao Tao held it in front of him, and said as if she was presenting a treasure. He teased. The shop owner is the smart one. But I have a good eye. Tao Tao pouted in protest. Higashio Motetsu didn't comment. I'll take it to your room first and put it in for you. Tao Tao stuck her tongue out at him and turned to leave. Wait, don't be in such a hurry. I have something to tell you. Tao Tao stopped and turned to look at him with sparkling eyes. What is it? I'm going to the Yu clan with Qingyan and the rest, but it's very dangerous there. You have to stay. With that, the bouquet in her hands fell to the ground. Chapter 1620. What? Say that again? Tao Tao couldn't believe what she had just heard. She blinked and tried to calm herself down as she stared at him without blinking. He didn't think that her reaction would be so big, but he wouldn't change his decision. He repeated his words and added, If you don't want to stay here, I can get someone to send you back to the Sichuan. Tao Tao clasped her hands together and stared at him. Why don't you let me follow? Higashio Motetsu, who was usually mischievous, couldn't use casual words to tease her when he saw her trying to suppress her anger. He could only tell her the reason seriously. There's a civil war there, it's not safe. He didn't want her to be in danger. Then you shouldn't go, she said angrily. No, Qingyan is pregnant, I won't feel safe. He flatly refused. Tao Tao felt like her heart had been fiercely pulled out, but she still tried to be calm and said to him, But she has Xiao and Xiao Laiqi. There are so many people protecting her and she's so smart. She won't let herself be in danger. Higashio Motetsu couldn't bear to see her like this, but he still firmly said, It's better to be safe than sorry. I can only be at ease if you follow her. Cao Cao's face instantly lost all color. She pursed her lips and stared at him without saying a word, as if she wanted to bore holes in him. From the beginning, he knew that persuading her would be a big task. Seeing her so stubborn, it proved his thoughts. Cao Cao, be good. I don't want to be good. An obedient child won't get candy. Since she was young, she wasn't the one who was valued. Because she followed the rules, her master was very assured of her and put all his attention on those willful and naughty senior brothers and sisters. And because she was too obedient, her senior brothers and sisters all bullied her. So she knew that the more obedient she was, the less others would care about her, and the more they wanted to bully her. He looked at Cao Cao, who was like a child with a headache. Then what do you want? Higashio Motetsu didn't notice. He had always done things his own way and never cared about the people around him, let alone informing others of his whereabouts and making plans for them. It was because he cared about her that he treated her problems as his own. It was just that at this time no one noticed. I want to follow you to the Moon Clan. She stubbornly straightened her neck. No. Then don't go. I can't. Higashio Motetsu, you have no right to interfere with my decision. Cao Cao was already regretting her impulsive words, but she didn't want him to be complacent. She clenched her fists tightly to prevent her emotions from leaking out. Higashio Motetsu was angered by her. Fine, I don't have the right to interfere with you. Then you don't have the right to interfere with me. Cao Cao bit her lips. He finally said it. Actually, he hated her. But at this time, she couldn't fling her sleeves and leave, because it was even more impossible for him to take her with him. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but abandon the pride and self-esteem that she had lived for more than 10 years. She slowly walked in front of him, and reached out her small hand to shake his sleeve. Just let me go. I promise I won't cause any trouble, and I won't give you any trouble. Also, you see, I have medical skills. Maybe I can help you when the time comes? It was rare to see her so meek and obedient. He couldn't help but want to reach out and pat her head, but he killed the thought as soon as it appeared. Ethereal and Yanlua will follow. Their medical skills are not inferior to yours. He took a step back, and his sleeve slipped through her fingers. Cao Cao looked at her empty hands, and then at the unreasonable person in front of her. Anger suddenly surged in her heart. No matter how good their medical skills are, what if they encounter an illness that they don't understand? One more person means one more power. Isn't that right? But what if their medical skills are better than yours? What's the use of you going? Higashio Motetsu was troubled by her stubbornness. All right, that's what you said. I'll go and compete with them. Let's see if my medical skills are better than theirs. Am I useful or not? After shouting at Higashio Motetsu, Cao Cao turned and ran towards the door. Cao Cao. He frowned and wanted to stop her, but she was already prepared. She used her qinggong and disappeared in a few leaps. Higashio Motetsu looked at the bouquets on the ground and couldn't help but frown. He didn't expect her to have such a big reaction, so he couldn't help but follow her. Kong Ling and Yanlua were in the courtyard picking out the herbs they wanted to take away. At this time, the courtyard door was forcefully pushed open from the outside. They looked towards the source of the noise, and saw Cao Cao gasping for breath with her hands on her knees. Chung Yanlua looked at her in surprise and asked, "What's wrong? Why are you in such a hurry? Is there a dog chasing after you?" Cao Cao strode up to them and said bluntly, "Yanluo Kongling, I want to challenge you to a duel with your medical skills." Cao Cao's words came out of nowhere, but they understood what she meant. "Cao Cao, you know medicine?" Chung Yanluo looked at her in surprise. She didn't know about this. Cao Cao nodded. She hadn't mentioned it before, so it was normal that they didn't know. "I'm the medical demon's disciple." Although she didn't want to use her master's name, she knew that their medical skills weren't low. She was afraid that they wouldn't agree to the duel. "The medical demon? You're actually the medical demon's disciple," Ethereal said in surprise. When he was sent by his master to be apprenticed, he was supposed to be apprenticed under the medical demon's name, because he didn't want to learn simple medicine. He wanted to learn about poisons. But when he arrived, they had already taken in all the disciples. Later on, he joined Xiao Yan's sect. Cao Cao nodded. "There's nothing to lie about this. So I'm here to challenge Divine Dr. Luo's disciple as the medical demon's disciple. I hope the two of you can accept my challenge. Divine Dr. Luo and her master were both righteous and evil. Although they were both famous, their styles of doing things were completely different. Divine Dr. Luo had the mentality of practicing medicine to help the world, while her master saved people because he found them pleasing to the eye. Otherwise, no matter how high one's status was or how rich one was, he wouldn't save them. Ethereal and Chengyan Luo looked at each other and saw the surprise in each other's eyes. Who said that doctors didn't have a competitive heart? They had long heard of the medical demon's name and hoped that they could witness her medical skills in their lifetime. They didn't expect to meet her disciple today. If it was a duel, then so be it. They wanted to see how high the medical demon's disciple's medical skills were. Okay, Chung Yenluo replied solemnly. Tao Tao looked at Higashio Motetsu, who had rushed over, and raised her brows delightedly. Higashio Motetsu had just arrived when he heard Chung Yenluo's reply. He couldn't help but feel annoyed that he didn't stop her in time. Chapter 16:21. Higashio Motetsu was stunned when he saw her proud expression, but he still walked over and reprimanded her in a low voice. Nonsense. We're just comparing notes. It's none of your business. Tao Tao made a face at him, then turned around to discuss with Chung Yenluo. Ethereal thought that the couple was at odds, so she smiled at Higashio Motetsu and said, "It's all right. We didn't expect Tao Tao to be the medical demon's disciple. We're very happy to compare notes with her." Higashio Motetsu felt a headache coming on. He didn't want Tao Tao to win. Otherwise, with her personality, she would definitely follow them. However, he didn't want her to lose either. He knew that she was most proud of her medical skills. These two complicated thoughts conflicted in his heart, making him even more irritated. At this moment, Chu Qingyan, who had rushed over after hearing the news, looked at everyone in confusion. What's going on? Her gaze fell on Tao Tao. Hualing had just reported that Tao Tao had rushed to Yenluo's courtyard with a serious expression, as though she was here to seek revenge. She was so scared that she thought something bad had happened. However, when she arrived, she found that everyone was happy and harmonious. Tao Tao saw Chu Qingyan and immediately ran over, speaking before Higashio Motetsu could. "Qingyan, let's make a bet. If I win against Ethereal and Yenluo, you'll take me to the Moon Clan, okay?" Higashio Motetsu pursed his lips. He originally wanted Qingyan to persuade her, but he didn't expect her to guess his thoughts and make the first move. Although Tao Tao didn't say it explicitly, Chu Qingyan immediately thought of what she had said to Dongting today and understood. She glanced at Dongting and found that he was trying to signal her with his eyes. She found it funny and turned to agree. Since she couldn't stop Dongting, then Tao Tao could go if she wanted to. In any case, she and Dongting were inseparable. Higashio Motetsu was speechless. She wasn't afraid of a godlike opponent, but a pig-like teammate. After hearing Qingyan's words, Tao Tao immediately raised her head like a victorious rooster and looked at Higashio Motetsu with contempt. Higashio Motetsu opened his folding fan and smiled provocatively. "Don't be so smug. Compete well. You might not be as good as your opponent." "Thank you for the reminder, but Tao Tao, don't lose." Tao snorted coldly. Dongting Wangyu said with a fake smile, "I hope so." At this time, Kong Ling and Yen Luo had already decided on the content of the competition. First, Tuza's poison. Second, third. SS's Tao had no objections. Chu Qingyan was the notary. The first round of the competition began. Kong Ling took out a bottle of medicine and said to the crowd, "This is a new poison that I've developed recently. It's called three-step fall. It means that once you take this poison, you'll be powerless within 3 steps and die within half an incense stick's worth of time." With that, he turned to Tao Tao and said, "If you can write out the antidote within the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, I will admit defeat." This was his latest creation, which meant that there was no antidote for it yet. Ethereal dared to say this, which meant that he was very confident in his medicine. He had long wanted to challenge the medicine demon's poison techniques. Now that he had taken out his proudest medicine, He believed that Cao Cao wouldn't be able to cure this poison. Cao Cao took the bottle with a calm expression. Although she was best at poisons, she wasn't conceited. She opened the bottle and poured a drop into a cup to observe its color. Then, she sniffed it with a serious expression. This was a rare side of her. Even Higashio Motetsu forgot to wave his fan. He just stared at her in a daze. The young girl was facing him sideways. Because she had lowered her head, her graceful and beautiful snow-white neck was exposed. Her eyebrows were lowered, and she was charming and gentle. Only then did he realize that this little witch also had a quiet and dignified side. Cao Cao, who was oblivious to the outside world, had a glint in her eyes. She then curled her lips and walked to the side of the desk. After a while she finished writing a prescription. Ethereal didn't believe that she could cure the 3-step fall poison when he saw that she had finished writing in such a short time. However, when he looked at the antidote seriously, he couldn't help but freeze. Cheng Yanluo saw that he hadn't spoken for a long time. She couldn't help but go up to him. "Is there a problem with the prescription?" Ethereal shook his head and smiled. He looked a little defeated, but he still cupped his hands at Cao Cao and said, "I admit defeat." This little girl was young, but she was extremely talented in poisons. Not only did she take a short time, but the antidote she used was also very precise. Perhaps even his master wouldn't be able to write such a flawless prescription in such a short time. Cao Cao replied modestly, "Everyone has their own specialties. My specialty is the antidote of congestion. Thank you for letting me win." She was extremely talented in the area of poison, and even those proud and arrogant senior and junior brothers and sisters had to admit it. Higashio Motetsu couldn't sit still when he saw that she had won the first round so easily. He thought that Ethereal might have gone easy on her, but when he saw how he looked after losing, he couldn't help but suppress his impatience and wait to see what would happen. The second round was to treat the injuries. Cao Cao and Cheng Yanluo each had a short-legged goat in front of them. They were competing to see who could stitch the goat up the fastest. When the time started, Cao Cao and Cheng Yanluo started separately. They each applied medicine on the goat, then picked up a needle and started stitching. However, things didn't go well for Cao Cao at first. Although she stopped the bleeding from the goat's wound, when her needle touched the wound, the goat was in so much pain that it immediately kicked her with its good leg. If she hadn't dodged fast enough, she would have been bleeding by now. Seeing the goat obediently accept Cheng Yanluo's stitches, Cao Cao was a little annoyed. She raised her hand and chopped the goat's neck. The goat immediately fainted. "Let's see how you're going to kick me now." The two of them stitched up in full swing. The audience was dazzled, but they didn't want to look away. In the end, the two of them finished stitching up almost at the same time. The two of them retreated, and Ethereal took over as the examiner. Their stitching skills were basically on par, so there were no problems. Just as Ethereal was about to report the situation to Chu Qingyan, the goat that Cheng Yanluo was in charge of stood up and bleated a few times. Cao Cao immediately looked at her goat. It was lying there sickly, completely ignoring her. Cheng Yanluo looked at Cao Cao and smiled. "The goat kicked you just now because you didn't apply painkillers. That's why it's weak now." Cao Cao glanced at the other goat. She pursed her lips and lowered her eyes. "I admit defeat for this round." Cheng Yanluo was a little surprised that she was so straightforward. In fact, when it came to stitching up wounds, they were evenly matched. This round was about treatment, but I neglected the purpose of treatment. How to reduce the patient's pain and achieve the goal of treatment. However, she grew up in the Devil's Valley and was influenced by her master. All she learned was how to hurt and kill people. She lacked the benevolence of a doctor, so she accepted her defeat wholeheartedly. Cheng Yanluo patted her shoulder. "You went easy on me." Chapter 1622. After 2 rounds of competition, Cao Cao won 1 and lost 1. In the last round, the rules were that both parties had to be blindfolded and identify the names of the herbs. In order to be fair, Chu Qingyan would pick the herbs for this round and divide them into 10 portions. Then each of them would pick 1 portion and use it as their topic. Ethereal would compete in this round. Cao Cao and Ethereal were blindfolded and brought to a table. There were 3 herbs on the table and they looked very similar. However, if one looked carefully, they would be able to find the differences. Begin. As soon as Chu Qingyan finished speaking, the 2 of them quickly picked up the first herb and began to identify it. Everyone gathered around, but they were separated by layers of mountains and could not understand the herbs at all. They simply sat down in the hall and waited for the results. Unknowingly, the weather outside began to change. The originally clear sky was filled with dark clouds. It was as if the clouds weighed 1,000 pounds and floated very low. After a while, it began to rain. However, the rain was very light. The people inside were focused on the competition and did not notice it. Half an incense as time passed and the herbs were taken away. Tao Tao and Ethereal took off their cloth and sat down. They dipped their brushes in ink and wrote down the names of the herbs. The 2 of them stopped writing at the same time. Please show your answers for everyone to see. Chu Qingyan smiled and said to the 2 of them. Ethereal and Tao Tao showed the side of the paper with the words on it to everyone. Hualing, go and check. Hualing obeyed and checked them one by one. Lu Mingzi, Huijing, from today onwards, Ethereal's answer is all correct. An ethereal smile appeared on his face. Everyone turned to look at Tao Tao. Tao Tao straightened his back, his face full of confidence. Qianhua, Lu Pu Fujin, Tao Tao's answer is all correct as well. As soon as Hualing finished speaking, everyone could not help but clap. Chu Qingyan smiled and congratulated them. Congratulations to the 2 of you. This round is a draw. Tao Tao had 1 win, 1 loss, and 1 draw. Ethereal Smoke also had 1 win, 1 loss, and 1 draw. Neither side had a clear winner. As soon as Chu Qingyan said this, Tao Tao was a little anxious. Then if it's a tie, wouldn't it mean that there's no difference in medical skills? Chu Qingyan was stunned for a moment before she realized that this was indeed the case. Higashio Motetsu closed his fan and walked to Tao Tao's side. He knocked on her forehead and said, "You wanted to compete, so you competed. There was no clear winner. This is God's will. You didn't win, so you can't go. You have to accept this result." Tao Tao was unwilling to give up. She turned to Chu Qingyan and said, "Since there's no winner, we can have another round. Get someone to bring more herbs." As soon as Tao Tao finished speaking, Jasper hurriedly ran in from outside. "It's raining outside. I didn't bring in the herbs just now and they're all wet." Upon hearing this, Chu Qingyan said to Tao Tao apologetically, "They're all wet. We can't compete anymore." Tao Tao was stunned. Her neck stiffened as she looked out of the window. She didn't know when the sky had turned so dark and the rain was drizzling nonstop. Why did it have to rain now of all times? Could this be God's will? She looked at the misty sky in a daze. Xiao Su, who hadn't seen the little fellow for a long time, came to take her away with an umbrella. Before Chu Qingyan left, she saw that Tao Tao's expression wasn't right. She wanted to say a few words to her, but the rain was getting heavier and heavier. She was afraid that it would be difficult to walk later. Xiao Su took her away without another word. Higashio Motetsu also noticed her expression and thought that this little devil was unhappy that she didn't win. He patted her shoulder to comfort her. "Alright, this is the result. Don't throw a tantrum. Let's go back." However, to his surprise, Tao Tao raised her hand to push away his hand on her shoulder. She didn't even raise her head as she walked out of the door with her eyes lowered. Tao Tao's coldness made him freeze for a moment. He even forgot to retract his arm that was raised in midair. What's wrong with this little devil? At this moment, he caught a glimpse of her stepping into the rain from the corner of his eye. His eyes flashed and he immediately chased after her. Ethereal stopped him and handed him an umbrella. He didn't have time to thank him. He grabbed the umbrella and rushed out. The winter rain was very cold. Although it didn't have any weight, it hurt when it hit her body. However, no matter how painful her skin was, it couldn't compare to the pain in her heart. Tao Tao stepped on the rain, her eyes dim. She didn't know where she should go at this moment. Her heart was empty. The rain that hit her body disappeared. She stood still and looked up at the umbrella that covered the sky. She heard hot breathing beside her ear. The person behind her didn't need to speak. She could sense who it was just by the sound of the blood in her body. Her hand was grabbed, and she was pulled in front of him. A furious voice followed. Tao Tao, what are you thinking? It's raining so heavily. Are you blind? Yes, I'm blind. Only a blind person would like you. What did you say? He didn't hear it clearly, but he felt that her entire body was trembling. It was not a small matter to catch a cold in this cold weather. He took off his coat and put it on her. When he touched her shoulder, it was extremely cold. His face turned cold, and he immediately grabbed her wrist, wanting to pull her into the courtyard. Let's go. I'll take you back to change your clothes. However, when he touched her hand, she flung it away. Higashio Motetsu pursed his lips and narrowed his eyes. Tao Tao, what are you trying to do? Tao Tao raised her head to look at him. This was the first time she looked at him since the competition ended. That pair of eyes that were originally full of vitality seemed to have been robbed of all their light. At this moment, he suddenly lost the strength to vent his anger. He subconsciously took a step forward, wanting to grab her again, but she avoided him once again. Tao Tao smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. Higashio Motetsu, are you very pleased to see me jumping up and down for you? Very happy? Very proud? Tao Tao, do you know what you're saying? His brows turned serious as he reprimanded her in a low voice. Tao Tao smiled subconsciously with a hint of ridicule. Of course I know what I'm saying. But Higashio Motetsu, do you know that I really like you? The rain became heavier. When it fell on the ground, it splashed water, one after another. Tao Tao's confession penetrated the sound of the rain, and seemed to circle the entire courtyard before landing in his ears. It carried the desolation of the wind and the sorrow of the rain. She didn't hide anything, didn't put on any decorations, and just said it so bluntly. He was caught off guard and was hit in the heart. He held the umbrella handle, unable to hide the shock in his eyes. He moved his lips, but no words came out, because he saw the faint trace of ridicule at the corner of Tao Tao's mouth. Seeing this, he couldn't help but feel panic in his heart. It felt like something was slipping from his fingertips, but no matter how hard he clenched, he couldn't catch it. But you don't like me. A gust of wind blew, blowing their hair. The hair blurred each other's eyes, and they couldn't see each other's eyes. Their eyes were filled with pain. Chapter 16:23. Tao Tao tried her best to open her eyes and look at the person standing in front of her. His incomparably charming phoenix eyes were especially bright in this dusky world, as if they were flickering with a strange light. His purple robes and black hair fluttered behind his back, accentuating his tall and slender figure, incomparably flirtatious. It was this pair of eyes that had resolutely chosen to save her when she had passed by Mount Fengtai, because he was too beautiful, so beautiful that people couldn't help but want to approach him. However, their first meeting was in a rainy day, and today was also in a rainy day. Could this be heaven's will? Wherever she began, it would end there. You don't need to feel vexed because I won't bother you in the future. I won't go to the Yu clan anymore. Who you want to protect is your freedom. Like you said, I have no right to interfere. In the past, she felt that people who were trapped by love were too stupid. Why would they be entangled with someone? If they liked someone, they would be together. If they didn't like someone, they would give up. It was that simple. But it wasn't until she fell deeply into it that she realized that all love was the same. It was like an incurable poison. Once you were infected, unless you died from the poison, you wouldn't be able to get rid of it. So in these 3 years, she kept on pestering him. She squandered all of her pride and self-esteem, becoming someone who wasn't even like herself. Hearing her say that she wouldn't bother him anymore, it was clearly his long-time wish, but when it came from her mouth, he couldn't feel happy at all. He saw her pale face. If she continued to stand in this storm, she would definitely fall sick. He softened his tone and said, Tao Tao, let's go back first. Let's not mess around anymore. Mess around? Even now, he still didn't understand her feelings. Did he still think that she was a child throwing a tantrum? At this moment, she couldn't help but want to fiercely beat him up and then leave. Higashio Motetsu, do you think that I'm very funny? You clearly don't like me, but I'm like a shadow that you can't get rid of. She didn't even wait for him to reply as she continued to say, actually, I also think that I'm very funny. I didn't want the vast wilderness outside and chose you." He had never seen Tao Tao like this before. He didn't notice that his hand holding the umbrella was trembling slightly. He couldn't help but reach out to grab her arm. This time, he didn't know if she wasn't paying attention or if it was for some other reason. But she didn't shake off his hand. However, her skin didn't have any warmth at all, which made him frown. He exerted a little strength and pulled her into his embrace, wanting to use his body temperature to warm her cold body. She was very petite, and people couldn't help but want to take pity on her. "Let's not talk about this, okay? If you want to go to the Moon Clan, I'll take you there." Tao Tao allowed herself to be immersed in his embrace. Perhaps this was the first time, and it would also be the last time. However, the compromise in his words made her put on her armor once again. In the sect, the master was a person who was difficult to distinguish between good and evil, and the people he brought out were all strange and evil. Killing people was very normal in their eyes, and it was not uncommon to see fellow disciples killing each other. In order to protect herself, she had long learned to erect a body of thorns for herself, but after meeting him, she gradually learned to withdraw her claws. But at this time, she suddenly realized that the only thing that could protect her was her thorns. "Are you pitying me?" Her voice was soft, but it hit his heart like a storm. He didn't mean that. But she didn't give him a chance to speak. Instead, she lifted her head from his embrace, pushed his chest away, and took 2 steps back, once again entering the curtain of rain. The rain fell on her cheeks, and her hair was tightly stuck to her face. Her long eyelashes were covered with tiny droplets of water, trembling slightly, making people feel pity for her. And that pair of large water spirit eyes made her face even more petite. It was just that her face, which was usually as beautiful as a peach blossom, was now as pale as a sheet of paper. He couldn't bear to see her standing in the rain, and wanted to move the umbrella over her head. She raised her hand to stop him from moving forward, and revealed a very, very faint smile. "Higashio Motetsu, let's stop here. I'll set you free, and I'll also set myself free. From now on, Qingshan is no longer here, and we won't meet again." After saying this, she took off his coat, stepped forward and put it in his hand. She curved her eyes at him, and then resolutely walked into the rain, just like how she had charged into his life without hesitation. Love was separated by mountains and seas, but mountains and seas couldn't be leveled. This time, she chose to give up. "Hey, are you still alive?" The rain was heavy, and she had just happened to pass by, but she found him. She thought that there was no one here, and there was no place to take shelter from the rain, so she simply stayed to tease him. She, the little magic doctor, didn't care about right or wrong, as long as she was happy. "I'm about to die," the person lying on the ground said in a light tone, but he didn't seem to care about his situation. "Don't disturb my last moments in this world." The other party felt that her appearance disturbed him, and was somewhat displeased. She was a little surprised, as this was the first time she had seen someone so calm about dying. She couldn't help but reach out to check his breathing, and raised her eyebrows. It turned out that his lungs were injured, but he wasn't incurable. "Little girl, don't touch me." "What? Could it be that you're keeping your chastity for someone else?" "That's not it, but I'm about to die, so I can't be responsible for you. So you'd better stay far away from me, or else you'll suffer a loss." She felt that this person was quite good with words, and just as she was about to retort, she met his open eyes. His phoenix eyes were glittering, and they sparkled, becoming the only light in the world, causing her heart to flutter. These eyes were too beautiful, and she really wanted to take them for herself. With this thought, she pinched her fingers, and a silver needle appeared in front of her eyes, and she stabbed it into his acupoint without hesitation. As a result, she had been inseparable for a year to recuperate, and 2 years to follow him without abandoning him. At that time, a junior sister asked her. At that time, she didn't see this person's appearance clearly in the darkness. If he wasn't so devilishly good-looking, but ugly, would she still want him? She tilted her head and smiled. Of course she wanted him. She didn't like his appearance, of course. It was also because his eyes were too beautiful. Her junior sister said, "Then you're still obsessed with looks." She laughed and wanted to chase after her. Now the past was still vivid in her mind, but it felt like it had happened a long time ago. At the beginning, she only had the thought of collecting his eyes, but later on, she completely fell in love with this person. However, no matter how hard she tried, giving up all her sharpness and hiding all her viciousness, she still couldn't win his heart. Because his heart had long been occupied by someone else, she thought that time could take away many things, and if she tried harder, he would see her. However, in this world, there were many things that time couldn't take away. There was a grave in his heart, where the undead lived. So she would never be able to win his heart. Cao Cao hugged her shoulders, feeling that this winter was really cold. Her lips curled up, and she disappeared into the rain. Chapter 1624. Higashio Motetsu watched her slowly disappear into the rain, his heart full of bitterness. This was clearly the ending he wanted, wasn't it? He had always wanted to get rid of this troublemaker. She was noisy all day, not even for a moment. Yes, this was what he wanted. It was good to talk things out. He wasn't a good person, he couldn't respond to her feelings, and he couldn't give her happiness. So letting her go was the same as letting himself go. So this was the best. But why did his heart feel empty, as if it had been hollowed out? He looked at the rain dancing in the sky, a trace of confusion appearing in his eyes. Hey, I saved you. Why didn't you even say a word of thanks? You were the one who insisted on saving me. I said, if you make me angry again, I'll poison your medicine. But after saying so many times, you still can't bear to poison me. I already told you, I can't walk around now, otherwise the medicine I took previously would have been for nothing. She nagged like an old woman. Hey, if you don't know what's good for you, I'll feed you to the wolves. Go ahead. In his memory, she was so angry that she puffed up her cheeks, but finally gave up and stomped her feet. I really owe you in this life. His mind was noisy, and it was still her. Back in the courtyard, he casually put the umbrella aside, but his heart was still worried. He turned around and walked towards her room. He knocked twice, but there was no response. He frowned, pushed the door open with both hands and walked in. There was no one. The room was still the same as before he left. On the table were the trinkets she bought, and on the bed was a half-finished vamp. He suddenly remembered 2 days ago, she was clamoring to measure the size of his feet. He didn't expect. He shook his head, shaking off the images in his mind, and then put down the vamp. He took one last look at the room, the corner of his mouth hooked up, and without a smile, he turned around and strode out. Higashio Motetsu, you've always been alone. You're only happy when you're not tied down. You can pick up and let go, and do as you please. That's you. When Chu Qingyan found out that Cao Cao had left, it was already the next day. She was in disbelief. What's going on? Why did Cao Cao leave? Jasper shook her head. I heard that she quarreled with young Master Dongting and then left. Because the rain was too heavy, no one noticed where she left. Chu Qingyan's eyes darkened. Let's go. I'm going to find Dongting. Jasper immediately said, Mistress, it's still raining outside. If we go out at this time, I'm afraid His Highness won't agree. It doesn't matter. He's dealing with some matters in the study now. Let's not tell him yet. Sneak away. Come back before he comes out. Chu Qingyan gave her a look and then strode out of the room. Jasper didn't have a choice. Her mistress always had her way of thinking, and no one could stop her. She could only take the umbrella and follow her. When she arrived at Higashio Motetsu's courtyard, there was no one around. It was extremely cold and cheerless, and there was no sign of Li's usual liveliness. Chu Qingyan frowned and reached out to push open the door that wasn't closed tightly. Why are you here? Before she stepped in, she heard a familiar lazy voice in the room. Hearing that his voice was the same as usual, Chu Qingyan felt relieved. She stepped in and walked around the pillars. She saw him lazily leaning against the back of the chair and flipping through a book. Can't I come to see you? Higashio Motetsu casually put the book aside and took the folding fan. With a flick of his finger, the fan opened up. He smiled and said, Sure, why not? Your visit brings light to my humble dwelling. Looking at his annoying smile, Chu Qingyan really wanted to reach out and pull it off. Oh right, Where's Tao Tao? She pretended not to know about them and looked around. The fingers holding the fan stiffened slightly, but he quickly covered it up. He looked up and said indifferently, "Why are you looking for her every time you come here? Unfortunately, she's not here this time. I'm afraid she won't be coming back in the future." The change in his tone was very obvious. Chu Qingyan, who had been paying attention to him, raised her brows. "What's wrong? Did the two of you quarrel?" "I guess so." She had seen how Tao Tao treated him in the past 2 years. If it were in the modern era, there would be many girls who were so bold and daring to chase after him. However, in this ancient era where men and women were guarded against each other, they were very rare. She liked Tao Tao, who did what she liked without caring about other people's opinions. So when she heard Dongting's indifferent tone, she was furious. "Why did you make her angry again? Don't you know that girls need to be coaxed? Don't always act like you don't care about anything. You're like a big man. Girls always have to bow down to you. Can't you just give in? You're a typical male chauvinist." After being scolded by Qin Yan, the unbearable feeling that had been pent up in his heart since last night finally subsided a little. He reached out and poured a cup of hot water for her. "Moisten your throat. Say whatever you want to say." Chu Qingyan came here to understand the situation between the two of them. However, when she saw that he didn't care, she couldn't help but want to teach him a lesson. She felt that it wasn't worth it for Tao Tao. However, when she saw how he accepted it so humbly, she couldn't bring herself to do it. She took a sip of water and controlled her temper. She looked at him helplessly. "I've seen the two of you quarrel often. Every time, she would be angered by you and run away. However, she would always come back in the end. This time, when her anger has subsided, she might come back." Hearing that, he shook his head. "This time she won't come back." Qingyan was right. It wasn't that she had never been angered by him and ran away. However, every time, she would come back on her own and ask him why he didn't look for her. However, this time, he had a feeling that she really wanted to cut off all contact with him. The certainty in Dongting's voice made Chu Qingyan jump in shock. "What's wrong with the two of you? I believe that you can feel that Tao Tao likes you. Don't tell me that after being together for so long, you don't have any feelings for her at all?" "I don't think so." Higashio Motetsu looked at the friend in front of him who really cared about him. His chest felt as if there were a lot of things that he wanted to say to her. However, in the end, he still swallowed them back down. He leaned against the back of the chair. He was so lazy that he seemed to have no bones. The folding fan in his hand swayed back and forth. "Just because she likes me, does that mean that I have to like her? If that's the case, then wouldn't it be too easy to be Yu Lao? Wouldn't the men and women of the world be a mess?" He had always been like this. The second time they met, it was when a girl was chasing after him. She knew that he wasn't wrong. However, after witnessing with her own eyes what Tao Tao had done for him, she felt that if he missed out on Tao Tao this time, he would never be able to meet such a girl in the future. Wholeheartedly, once you fell in love, you wouldn't turn back. "Dongting, look into my eyes. Tell me honestly, do you really not have any feelings for Tao Tao at all?" Chapter 1625. Qingyan's words made him grip the fan in his hand tightly. "Why? You don't dare to? So you're lying." Chu Qingyan crossed her arms proudly. Just as she was about to give him a blow, he suddenly lifted his head and looked straight into her eyes. Chu Qingyan's smile froze. Could it be that this guy really didn't like Tao Tao? "She's a good girl. I'm just a lonely boat without a harbor. I yearn for mountains and rivers, but I can't give her the happiness she wants." Because he couldn't give her the happiness she wanted, he chose not to respond to her right from the start. "I've been a playboy since I was young. I know that there are some people I can offend and some people I can't. That's why I've been able to live so freely for so many years. She accidentally barged into my life. It's my fault that I didn't send her away in time. But this time, we're really going our separate ways." When Chu Qingyan heard his words, she was instantly enraged. "Do you know? You've been spoiled. What do you mean Tao Tao is a good girl? You can't give her happiness. Since you know she's a good girl, You should grab hold of her. As long as you want to give her happiness, you can have as much happiness as you want. It's not that you can't do it, it's whether you want to do it or not. Don't think that it's glorious and something to be proud of just because you've been through thousands of flowers without being stained by a single leaf. Let me tell you, when you're tired of playing and don't want to play anymore, when you're lonely and want to have a warm home, you'll realize how ridiculous your thoughts are right now. Qingyan's angry scolding made him feel much better. It was as if the more she scolded him, the less guilty he felt. Jasper saw how angry her mistress was and immediately went forward to pat her back. Mistress, don't be angry. You're pregnant. It's not good if you hurt your body. Qingyan suddenly remembered. She took a few deep breaths and calmed herself down. She raised her eyebrows and met Dongting's worried gaze. She pursed her lips. Why are you worried about me? Don't you think you should be most concerned about Cao Cao right now? The rain is so heavy, and she left in the middle of the night. She didn't bring anything with her. The situation between the Sun-Moon race and the Sun-Moon race is very tense. What if something happens to her? Higashio Motetsu immediately looked at the pouring rain outside the window. He suddenly felt like blaming the heavens. It had been raining since yesterday, and there was no end to it. Why would there be such a thing as rain in this world? Qingyan thought that she had convinced him, so she struck while the iron was hot and said, "Go and look for her. Maybe she's hiding in some corner, waiting for you to find her." Higashio Motetsu restrained his emotions and returned to his usual devilish and unruly self. That's impossible. Based on her personality, she wouldn't degrade herself like that. She's as independent as you are. No matter where you throw her, she'll be able to adapt to the situation and grow up healthily. Oh, you really know her well. Qingyan mocked him with a fake smile. He knew that she was a person who cared a lot about her friends. If he didn't let her say a few words now, she wouldn't stop. He could only shut up and let her speak. Qingyan said a few more words, but when she saw that he still didn't seem to care, she felt like she was being too hot-headed and felt bad for Cao Cao. If this person wasn't her friend, she would have asked Big Ice Cube to beat him up. She finished the hot water in one gulp and warmed up her body. She was no longer as fierce as before. Finally, she said earnestly, "Dongting, I don't know what you're thinking, and I don't care if you really think that Cao Cao is a good girl. You can't give her the happiness of a couple for the rest of her life. I just want to tell you, the fate between people is very strange. In this world, there are millions of people, but the chances of meeting each other are very low. Therefore, the people who can appear in one's life are very likely to have blinked thousands of times in their previous lives and broken their necks several times before they could meet each other in this life. I don't know what Cao Cao is like in front of you, but in my eyes, Cao Cao is always worried about your gains and losses. She tries her best to tiptoe to get closer to you, but she's afraid that you'll push her away if she gets too close. This kind of love is really too taxing on one's mind, and it's a test of one's patience. Have you heard of a saying? When you see through everything, you won't be worried about gains and losses anymore. Who can take anything away from you? Only then do you understand that losing is more reliable than having. I think when Cao Cao left, her mood was like this. Qingyan said a lot in one breath. She didn't know if he listened to her or not. After calculating the time, the ice cube should be back. She couldn't sit still anymore. She stood up and inadvertently glanced at the book on the table. Suddenly, she understood something and turned to leave with Jasper. Higashio Motetsu was a little dizzy by her words. Or he was so shocked by these words that he didn't even notice when she left. Unknowingly, the smile on his face had disappeared. He held his forehead, his heart in turmoil. He remembered Qingyan's last words. "Dongting, do you know? I'm not worried that you'll miss Cao Cao, a good girl, but I'm worried that you'll fall in love with her unknowingly. When you realize it, she will have disappeared. Do you understand what I mean? Shouldn't the person in his heart be Qingyan? Why was he upset because of another woman now? However, what he was thinking more now was why the rain didn't stop. Where was the little witch now? Her clothes were all in the room. She didn't take anything with her. Would she be in danger? She was in the rain yesterday. Would she catch a cold? He looked at the umbrella standing in the corner and hesitated for a moment. Finally, he looked out of the window at the darkness. As soon as Chu Qingyan returned to the yard, a little meatball threw himself at her feet and hugged her. He raised his head and called "Mother." Her heart melted when she heard that. However, when she looked up, she saw the person sitting at the table looking at her coldly. Obviously, he was going to blame her. The corner of her eyes twitched. How could he be so fast? Fortunately, her son was there. She could ask him to save the situation. Just as she was about to ask her son to help her get away with it, a cold voice sounded. "It's useless to call for help." Her son shrugged at her. "Mother, you're on your own. I can't help you." Chu Qingyan lowered her head helplessly. She'd better confess. Jasper had just experienced her master's threatening behavior in front of Higashio Motetsu. She also saw her master as well behaved as a rabbit in front of His Highness. She couldn't help but feel amused. Only His Highness could subdue her master. After Chu Qingyan explained the cause and effect, she couldn't help but sigh. It's a pity that such a lovely girl like Tao Tao has to go through hardships. Xiao raised his eyebrows. Lovely. That little girl was not someone to be trifled with. She had a reputation as a prostitute, and her disciple would not be a kind person. However, seeing the little fellow so concerned, he couldn't help but ask, "Do you think it's possible for these two people to be together?" "Of course." Chu Qingyan's eyes lit up and she smiled slyly. Chapter 1626. Xiao heard her say so much, and felt that there was no chance between the two of them. But hearing the little one's confident tone, could there be a turning point? He rarely cared about things other than his own family, but since the little one was so concerned, he would pay more attention. Perhaps this was the so-called "love me, love my dog." Let's hear it. Sure enough, when he said this, the little one was like a cat that had stolen a fish, and smiled very slyly. She chuckled and said, "When I was looking for Dongting today, I found him reading a book. It's an extremely profound and difficult book that explains crops. You don't know, he hates reading the most. Today he actually picked it up and started reading. I think there must be something fishy going on." Oh. Xiao did not listen to what she said seriously. At this time his mind was focused on her excited face, and he thought to himself, "My wife is beautiful no matter how you look at her." She thought he was interested, so the famous detective, Detective Conan, adjusted his non-existent bow tie, raised his non-existent glasses, and said the most classic line, "There is only one truth." However, before she could say the words she had prepared, her whole body was suspended in the air, and she landed firmly in his arms. "Hey, what are you doing? I haven't finished yet." She did not understand and pulled on his collar. "You didn't listen today, so I'm going to punish you." After saying this, Xiao carried her straight to the bed. Kong is still. When were there only the two of them left in the room? She was distracted for a while, and she was already on the bed. She looked at the light in the eyes of the person above her, and she suddenly felt a little scared and immediately rolled under the quilt. "It's broad daylight, don't think about doing those shameful things." She pulled the quilt up to cover her head, and sneaked out to breathe as she spoke. Looking at the furry head peeking out from the thick quilt, the feeling she gave when she was acting like a treasure just now was the same. No matter what she said or did, his wife was so cute that he could not help but want to dote on her. Xiao laughed lowly, and his deep and powerful voice sounded very pleasant in the quiet room, as if it was echoing in her ears. "It's cloudy outside. I can't see the sun." She had almost forgotten that this person was the best at arguing. "You're being unreasonable." She pulled down the quilt and prepared to argue with him, but she fell for it as soon as she pulled it down. A certain someone had been waiting for an opportunity to attack. Now that the city gates were exposed, how could they not attack the city? Chu Qingyan was kissed until she was dizzy. Her whole body went limp and she had no strength left. At first, she felt a little guilty. Her friend was in a relationship crisis, and she was still here seeking pleasure. However, after seeing her family's big ice cube take off his mask and reveal his peerless beauty, she threw that little bit of guilt to the back of her mind. In this world, There were three things that could not be let down: delicious food, beautiful scenery, and beauties. She followed her heart and reached out to hug the neck of the person above her. She said lecherously, "Beauty, give me a smile." Xiao raised his eyebrows. "You've grown bold." When she heard that, she cowered again. She grinned coquettishly and said, "Why don't I give you a smile?" Xiao smiled, revealing a smile that could turn the world upside down. "You're really so cute that I can't bear to part with you." However, a certain someone was already immersed in the beauty and could not extricate himself. Outside, it was raining heavily, but inside there was endless affection. The winter rain was indeed endless. Even at night, it was still drizzling. Higashio Motetsu supported his head with one hand as he lay on the bed. He was lost in thought as he stared at the burning candle. In the past, he would not rest so early at this time, because that little demoness would always pester him to talk. She would not sleep, nor would she let him sleep. Actually, he had already gotten used to being alone for more than 10 years. But in the past 3 years, she had somehow joined him. With someone to talk to, he would not feel bored. Slowly, he went from being repulsed and indifferent to accepting her existence. Zimo had once laughed at him. In the past, he took care of that child, Qingyan, to play. Now he was taking care of another child. Did he like taking care of children? He snorted, indicating that it was not the same at all. This little demoness was older than Qingyan back then. At her age, she could have gotten married and had children long ago. Actually, he knew what Zimo meant. He had never kept a girl by his side. Chu Qingyan was the first, and Tao Tao was the second. In the past 3 years, he had never been separated from her. Now that they were separated all of a sudden, he was not used to it. For example, at this moment, she was no longer around. His side was empty and he felt as though something was missing. He had always thought that she was a child. For fun, she would pester him and treat conquering people's hearts as a game. Just like before she met him. She was perverse and played the world. She did not treat lives as human lives, and whether she saved them or not depended on her mood. That was the reason why he did not take her feelings seriously. 3 years might not be a long time in a person's life. Recuperating, taking back the Moon Palace and settling internal affairs. Time passed in the blink of an eye. It was uneventful, as though there was nothing worth reminiscing about. Initially, he thought the same as well. There was nothing to reminisce about. However, even though she was no longer in front of him, things related to her flashed before his eyes one by one. Back then, he thought that he was definitely going to die. When he opened his eyes, he thought that he had entered the gates of hell. To think that he was still alive. A white figure appeared in his vision with her back facing him. He joked. To think that Granny Meng would be so young. I thought that she was an old woman. Right, I wonder if Granny Meng's soup tastes good? The white figure turned around. It was a young girl. She grinned at him and said sinisterly, I don't know if Granny Meng's soup tastes good, but I know that the medicine you're going to take next will definitely taste terrible. Indeed, the medicine he drank was similar to Coptis chinensis. Later on, he found Coptis chinensis in the dregs of the medicine, and understood that women and villains were the hardest to deal with in this world. She was truly a little demoness who held grudges. Thinking of this, he could not help but laugh. Outside, the sound of the rain was pitter-patter. The room was silent, but this laugh seemed abrupt at this time. Suddenly, the laughter stopped. He was stunned. Why did he think of the things that happened 3 years ago at this time? It was clearly something that happened so long ago. And what was there to reminisce about? When did he become so indecisive? Could it be that the weather also affected people? There was a faint answer in his heart, but he did not want to look at it. He did not want to pay attention to it. Irritated, he took the folding fan and opened it with a paw sound. He covered his face with it. Sleep, sleep. He still had to wake up early tomorrow to go to the Moon Clan. However, people's actions could be controlled by their thoughts, but some things could not be controlled by their thoughts. For example, longing, memories, and love. You're tuning into the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.